Inside the Birds is back. Happy New Year, everyone. Hello and welcome to Inside the Birds pregame live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook in Philly, right on Delaware Ave. It's where where Philly loves a winner. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds, alongside my Inside the Birds co-host Adam Kaplan, and with us as usual, our friend, our tape breakdown guru. His name is Greg Cosell. What's up, Greg?
Jeff, what's happening? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. And that empty seat will soon be filled by former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant, who is going to be with us shortly. It is a win, and maybe they're in Sunday for the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a chance to lock up a playoff berth today if they can get a win. It all starts with getting a win over Washington in the second of the two-game series, this one at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. And, of course, the Eagles need some help along the way. We'll get into that. The Eagles can clinch a wild card berth, but they will also need losses by the Vikings and Saints along with the win. And then there are some other things that could happen. You know, snow can fall, the world could explode, COVID, everybody's got it. I mean, there are so many things that we're going to go through here to see if the Eagles can make the playoffs. We'll have it broken down. We're at Jack's Bar and Grill. The Eagles are also attempting to win 4 straight games for the first time since 2019. Remember that they needed all 4 wins at the end of the year. Carson Wentz put the team on his back. They go 4-0 down the stretch. They make the playoffs and then lose to Seattle in the wild card round. But that was kind of a magical December ride that the Eagles were on.
Well, that seems like a long time
I was
ago.
just about to say that just seems like 10 years ago.
I know, doesn't it?
Right? Carson Wentz putting the team on his back.
Wow.
He actually had the back fracture.
That's true.
Yes.
He did. That's right. Meanwhile, Washington, they come off perhaps their worst loss in quite a long time, a 52-14 defeat to the Cowboys last Sunday. Taylor Heinicke had left with an injury, and you saw 2 of their best defensive players fighting there on the sideline. So the circus remains in town there in Landover, Maryland. We got a lot to discuss, so come down to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, catch the game. Enjoy the great food, the drinks, the leather seats, the big screen TVs, and of course, right around kickoff, Adam and I will stick around and we'll do an Inside the Birds watch party. We'll do some pre-game analysis, some in-game analysis, and we'll give away some autographed memorabilia and other prizes. So you got plenty of time to get down here to Rivers and catch the game.
Those prizes are awesome, by the way. I got to look at them. Holy smokes. Some of those hats are worth $40.
Yeah, well, you're not getting any.
Yeah. I want one collector's item. I got to put it on my
They're
shelf.
for the people.
All right. Aren't we part of the people?
Not you. This man's
Part
part
of
of the
we're part of the people.
The audacity to wear the Michigan outfit today, but Jason Avant,
Hey.
welcome to the show.
Hey, listen, I had to wear it in good times and bad. This is your chance to totally destroy me today.
Well,
so
no,
I had to
Penn
give it
State
to you.
Unfortunately, I
So-
cannot use that
Hey,
opportunity. to
listen,
destroy
but
you.
we
You
did
were
bad, so I said, look, I'm going to wear it in the bad times, too.
worse. I hear you. Well, welcome to the show. Happy New Year to you,
Happy
Jason
New
Avant.
Year.
All right. Before we get started, please share this on whatever platform you're watching it on. Give us a like. Give us some positive comments, please, if you're watching on YouTube. Also, if you leave a comment or a question in the chat box, we will do our best to answer it. We've been doing that a lot lately. You can also leave us your score prediction, and we will read that throughout the show as well, as it's such a big game, and I'm sure people are very passionate about what the Eagles might do today, and we'll read out their scores. Let's start with the big news. Obviously, it's about the Eagles' running game and the status of Jordan Howard. Now, he's going to play today. The Eagles said last week that he suffered a stinger that he's been getting a treatment for. It's also my understanding, fellas, that along with the stinger, which tends to be a nerve thing, is he's dealing with a slight sprain in that shoulder as well. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was some practice footage and some reporters tweeting about either a harness or something that he's wearing over the shoulder to kind of keep it braced up as he absorbs contact. But obviously this is their major power runner. He's been a big part of their resurgence in their ground game, but he's dealing with a somewhat significant injury here to an area that absorbs a lot of contact. So Jay, I'll just start with you on that.
Yep.
Playing through injury, guys do it, but when you are a ball carrier and you are dealing with that kind of an injury on your shoulder, how difficult can that be for security purposes and just pain tolerance?
Yeah, really hard because there's that stinger is usually in that AC joint area, meaning like there's some separation there. it's very, very hard to play through. I've had to play through it, 4 or 5 times in my career, and it's extremely hard for a receiver because it's limitation, as far as you can't get your hand over your shoulder.
Range of motion.
Range of motion. But for a running back, he's gonna suffer some pain, but it's not gonna be any like structural damage. It's something that just needs time to heal, but it's gonna hurt like every time he gets hit.
Yeah,
so
I'm
now
glad
they're gonna dope him up, whatever,
Yeah.
in a good way, not
yeah.
But it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
Happens?
He's gonna get a little anti-inflammatory as much as he can handle, much as tolerated, much as legal.
Right. No, I'm glad you mentioned the AC area because that's my understanding of where the discomfort is for him.
Yeah.
And what I was told was it's going to come down to 2 things: pain tolerance,
Yeah.
as you said, and range of motion. So he's going to play today, Adam. But again, I think we have to wonder, does he get as many carries as he ordinarily would because of this injury that he's
Well, a
dealing
couple
with?
things. They must feel like he definitely could play and get through the game because they did not add either Kerryon Johnson or Jason Huntley off the practice squad, which surprised me because
Very
remember,
surprising.
they dressed 4 last week and 2 got hurt.
Yeah.
So actually, and then what we didn't know is we would find out later this week is that Kenny Gainwell has a very minor ankle injury. He's fine. He's ready to go. But that would concern me because remember now, Jordan Howard, just talking to the Eagles about him, is actually a pretty good pass protector. I know he's not going to catch it much.
Right.
But you do wonder with that injured shoulder, will he be able to do that? But that's where Boston Scott comes in.
Just one final point I'd make, too, is, I think you have to be careful now if you're Jordan Howard. There's a difference between being a ball carrier and a runner. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, will he be a ball carrier today? Because it comes down to pain tolerance, obviously. But he's a guy that runs hard inside. He runs physically. That's his game. He's a contact runner.
Right.
Yeah.
So is he now going to just run basically to prepare for contact as opposed to playing through contact?
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between being a ball carrier and a runner.
Yeah, this type of injury, I agree with Greg here. This type of injury is usually better if you're going to play with it with more of a elusive
Yep.
runner. A guy that can still move around, can avoid some hits, a LaShawn McCoy type of guy. You can't really hit him that hard,
Right.
But a big physical guy, this can be, pretty traumatic for him today, pretty
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm sure we'll see 2 things. 1, how much they plan to use him, and 2, whether that pain tolerance issue causes, again, any ball security issues or any other thing, just how impactful he is.
And you'll see that pretty early. You'll see how he runs. Does he brace for contact? Because I see that a lot with runners when I watch tape, is you can kind of see them prepare for contact. And you can't really run like that in the NFL and be effective.
Right. Jake, as a wide receiver, I would think that's even more impactful because of your, as you mentioned, the range of motion. As a running back, as long as he can kind of tuck, right, he should be okay.
He should be okay. It just depends. It depends on what style exactly. Like there's sometimes in a game where you get hit right on it, and that happens in the NFL. You get hit right on it. A lot of times you're injured. I don't know if the team has a scouting report, but they make sure they get a helmet on the area.
Oh yeah.
There was video during the game. Remember, Jonathan Vilma was doing the game last week, and they showed Howard. It might have been his right shoulder holding it as he would leave the field. So that's a great point because teams will go to the coaching tape. They want to know which, like if it's an ankle, which ankle it is. Well, in this case, which shoulder it is. Because if you're Jack Del Rio, the D coordinator for Washington, you want to know which shoulder it is because you want to go get it.
Right.
And get him out of the game.
I had a knee versus Arizona years ago, and I got it playing the Giants. It was like the NFC Championship game. And the guy that was assigned me that game hit me in my knee about 5 straight times.
So he knew which one it was.
He knocked me out of the game. Yeah, he knew exactly when he knocked me out of the game.
Yeah.
In the last series, I couldn't play. Yeah.
You send him a Christmas card?
I got him a couple years later.
All right, that's good. The best type of revenge. You also wonder if it's still bothering him, which clearly he's got the stuff. Could he make it any worse? And what would that mean if they needed to beat Dallas next week or even further in the playoffs? Because we know Miles Sanders is going to be out several weeks. So this is all kind of works into the game today.
And
we'll talk about.
Theoretically, that's why Boston Scott is very important in this game. Because typically, if you've watched the game scripts, they've only gone with 2 backs, just about every game.
Right.
But today, to me, just to help Jordan Howard out with his shoulder, they got to get the other guys involved.
Absolutely. All right, well, the Eagles might have an opportunity to clinch today. Of course, they have to win. I think we could fairly all say not a lot of people in August thought the Eagles would be in this position where they could clinch a playoff spot. Let's talk about it. So if they win, and the Vikings lose and New Orleans loses, the Eagles are in.
Yes.
All right, that's like kind of the most dominant scenario for it to happen.
That's the best one,
Yeah,
right?
The best scenario.
But unfortunately, because Minnesota plays tonight, if you're an Eagles fan, you'll feel good about it. Half of the job is done.
Right.
But you have to wait to see. Now the Vikings without Kirk Cousins, with Sean Mannion starting in 3 to 5 degree weather in Green Bay.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, no Adam Thielen. So the chances are that'll happen. Then they also need a Saints loss today. Saints are at home against Carolina.
Right.
Now the other scenario is the Eagles and Vikings. Eagles win, Vikings lose, and the Niners win, because that would secure the Niners for 6, Eagles for 7. The Niners host the Texans. So they're both plausible, but the second one seems more logical to me, with the Niners winning at home against the Texans.
Yes, a lot to be determined. Jay, I just want to ask you, because a lot of people didn't see this team even being a playoff team before the year, and certainly not at 2 and 5, you see a mix here of veterans, guys who've won Super Bowls like Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, but also young guys like Jalen Hurts, Jalen Reagor. Do you wonder about this team's kind of tightness in a game like this, seeing how many young players are playing prominent roles?
I think that it all depends on when the young players are inserted into the game. Usually, our young players have had an entire season, so they're veterans by now. Usually they hurt you when they're in a situation where they're inserted and it's their first couple games, or if it's a situation that they haven't been in before, that's when it begins to hurt you a little bit. Going into these playoff games, if there's a situation that arises where there's a 2-minute drill and there's some protocol and they haven't been in that situation, it may, come up. But usually in regular game situations, our young players should be okay because they play so much ball.
Sure.
Yeah.
Plus, you got guys like Devontae Smith, who's played on the biggest stages of them all in college. Not that it's the same.
That's not the same. That's not the same.
But you don't think in a game like this?
It isn't the same.
Really? I mean,
it isn't the same.
that's the eyes of the world are on you when you're at Alabama.
No, I hear you, but it's still not the same. Different players. Like you ever see a guy, an NBA guy go into a gym, college gym, and he can score 50 if he wants to, but he doesn't do the same thing against the same talent. So it's a little bit different in the NFL against that same quality or better talent. It's a little bit different.
Well, it's like the people who think Alabama could win 10 games in the NFL.
No,
I love that.
ridiculous.
I love that.
Yeah.
3 at most.
That would not
right?
happen.
Just will not happen.
I mean, come on, 3 at most. No.
Not 3 at most. I don't know.
Jay, by the way, it always comes back to the NBA with you.
I know. I'm a
That
basketball.
young
I'm a
man who
basketball
wanted to be in the
guy.
NBA just
Oh,
always
man.
comes out of
If
you.
I could,
You're
I would
Bulls
give
fan?
it all away. Yeah, I'm a Bulls fan. DeMar Rosen
DeRozan.
went crazy
Oh,
yesterday.
he's
Yeah.
been going great.
Two in a row.
Yeah,
two in a row. Yeah.
How about
Great
it?
shots.
All right, let's get to the injuries because for one team there are many, for another not so much. We will talk about the Eagles first. We know Miles Sanders is out. He had the procedure on his hand. It's my understanding there was a pin involved, so it's going to be a couple of weeks. I know he didn't go on injured reserve. Obviously, they did not want to place him on injured reserve for the second time this year because that would put him out for the entire season. There's still a chance he can come back. As Adam and I have talked about, very unlikely this next week, and probably unlikely if they played in a wild card game. So they're hoping for a little bit of a deeper playoff berth there.
Yeah, and that's what Sirianni is hinting at. He's like, we hope we get him back, but he's not going to say. He doesn't want to talk about playoffs. I get that. But yes, for the wild card round, and then the other thing is with the wild card round, for the first time ever, they're going Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They actually have a Monday night game, which will be on ESPN. So we'll see if the Eagles would get one of those games. But yeah, the injury, we were talking about this before we started. Sean Bradley is the only one that was just popped up because he was cleared for the game off the COVID list, but unfortunately got into a minor car accident, the Eagles said, and he's out with a shoulder issue. But we don't know if it's week to week or day to day, but it was a minor. He's fine. But unfortunately, he now has the shoulder issue to come out of that, so he will not be available. Now, he is a key to our special teams, so that's a loss.
Yes, they did elevate from the practice squad Jacoby Stevenson, the rookie from LSU, so I imagine that is for a special team spot, as you imagine, because that's where Sean Bradley really did most of his work for the Eagles. Thankfully, he's okay from the car accident, but we'll see how long he's out for. Big note on the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Kenny Gainwell, Nate Herbig, no injury designation, all expected to play today. Let's talk about Washington's injury, and hopefully we can actually do a show after we're done and there's enough time left. The biggest ones are Antonio Gibson, obviously, is on the COVID reserve list, so he will not be able to make it back in time. He's out, along with right tackle Samuel Cosmi, also out from the COVID list. Eric Flowers, out, left guard, starting left guard. COVID list.
Yeah.
Tress Way, the punter.
That's huge.
Out.
One
That
of-
is enormous. I have no idea
He is
who's kicking
great.
the ball for
It's
them.
actually Ryan Winslow, who grew up in Maple Glen,
Oh, okay.
who played at Pitt.
Good old Maple Glen.
So here are the guys who are going to fill in. For Cosme, it should be Cornelius Lucas, who started a bunch last year.
Yep.
Sadiq Charles, Eagles saw him 2 weeks ago. He's more of a tackle, but he can play guard.
Well, he's been playing right guard while Sheriff was out, so
Correct.
he'll probably
Right. He's
play
played
left guard now.
Right. And then we just mentioned Tress Way, who's out. Montez Sweat's not expected to play on defense at DN. Unfortunately, he lost his brother this week.
It's been a rough year for him.
Yeah, he's lost his
Got
mom as
shot,
well. Yeah.
Broken jaw, COVID.
And then William Jackson will not play with his calf strain. This is huge. He's their best corner. St. Jude is out for the rest of the season due to concussion. And Dowell Roberts,
His back.
who started at corner last week, he's on the COVID list.
So he's not playing today?
His backup is hurt. Yeah, Dale Roberts.
Yeah, Dowell Roberts
not
is
hurt, on COVID.
Yeah, he went on the COVID list, so he won't play. So Danny Johnson, who started earlier in his career, he's a small corner. He's going to have to start. They're running out of corners opposite Kendall Fuller. Landon Collins is done for the season due to his foot injury. Bobby McCain starts for him. You mentioned Heinicke. He suffered a minor knee injury. He's fine to go. But if you watched the game last week, he got nailed in the chest.
Right.
But he just had the wind knocked out of him. He's fine, but he's had a bunch of injuries, shoulder and knee this season, also on the COVID list. Not a ton of practice squad
All
the
these
last couple
defensive
weeks.
injuries set up some interesting things. I don't know if you want to start getting into,
Matchups.
why don't
We'll
you
get
do
into it in a
why don't you
second,
do
but-
the injury report, and then in about 3 hours we can talk about the game.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all
no,
we-
and obviously Curtis Samuel, who's had a terrible
yeah.
year staying healthy
Yeah.
for Washington, is questionable to play. So we'll see if he can make it on the field. In place of the Antonio Gibson, look for heaping amounts of Jarrett Patterson and Jonathan Williams, the veteran, right? Those two guys would probably be carrying the ball
Journeyman,
most.
who I know, Greg, you like coming out of Arkansas,
You know
right?
what? I don't know what happened with Jonathan Williams because his college tape was very good.
Yeah, I
he was
remember
high
him.
back at Arkansas, and I actually thought, and hey, I get him wrong just like everybody else. He was in the same draft with Ezekiel Elliott, and I can't remember the other backs in that draft.
That's right.
But I thought he was the second best back in that draft. Obviously, it has not turned out that way.
Sure.
But he's been with a lot of teams, and he's still playing. And he's going to get carries today.
Well, he will get calories today. Now, in the first game time around, Landon Collins played, but Cameron Curl did not. I believe Cam Curl is on the COVID list.
He's
now,
back.
Collins has been injured since. He's out of the game. Cam Curl is back. So
Well, we'll get into that.
You
'cause
lose
they
one,
play,
you
they,
get
play,
another.
they play a ton of big nickel with 3 safeties,
Right.
which they will do.
They have to do
It's
that.
5 DLs.
Yeah.
They have to do it
Right,
today.
but they do anyway, but they have to today.
Yeah.
Yes.
obviously the biggest thing when you look at this list is the offensive line and then also the cornerback. I mean, William Jackson and Benjamin St. Juste are their starting corners, correct?
No, Fuller.
no.
I thought Fuller moved inside for nickel.
Fuller
no?
and Jackson were the starters on the outside if they
okay.
played base.
If they played
and
base.
then when they went to conventional nickel, because like I said, they play a lot of big nickel, but when they went to conventional nickel early in the season, Fuller would go inside and St. Juste would play outside.
Sure.
But he's done for the year.
Okay, so St. Juste was playing a lot, and you liked his tape early on, right?
Oh, yeah. He was a really interesting player coming out of Minnesota, 6'3",
Right.
kind of fluid. I thought he was a really good prospect.
All right, well, he will be on the sidelines or not being able to play in the game today. We'll talk about what that means for Washington's pass defense and, of course, the Eagles' passing offense. Eagles survived a few scares. They did get Derek Barnett off the COVID-19 list, along with Teron Jackson. Is Andre Chachere, did he come off, or is I
No,
believe
he's
he's still on, right?
Chachere in terms of the 53 is the only one left.
Correct. He is on the COVID list as well. Adam mentioned Kerryon Johnson, who was signed this week. He did not get elevated, so he still is involved in the practice squad. LaRaven Clark, Andre Dillard, and Ryan Kerrigan, also off the COVID list and should be available today. And Cameron Malvo, who actually played over
A lot of snaps last week.
45%
Yeah.
of the snaps last week, has been
Yeah.
elevated again and should, again, see some significant time if they want to play. Even with the defensive ends back, it sounds like they liked what they saw.
He's
and
an
they want to give
interesting
him a
guy.
chance.
He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah,
'cause
I
he's-
didn't build a whole lot into Malvo, so go for
Well,
it.
no,
right
just
now.
size and length. I mean, and he moves well.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's probably more of a prospect type as we go forward.
Right.
And I'm sure their evaluation of him will have a lot to say about what they think of Derek Barnett going forward.
Well, Derek Barnett, 2 sacks on the year.
Yeah. But, I mean, Malvo is 6'5", 275, looks the part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing on the COVID list, you don't know from a conditioning standpoint how these players are going to feel. So it's not a bad thing to have Malvo up just in case Barnett's conditioning.
Right.
Because you don't know with this thing, with Omicron, which is the new virus, how the breathing's going to be. I understand the symptoms are not as bad, and it could pass through you quickly, but you just don't know how he's going to do because he didn't practice this week.
There you go. All right, we're going to get into this. Remember, please give us a retweet, a share, anything you can to help make Inside the Birds pregame live, the most watched pregame show in the Delaware Valley. Also, fellas, it's now New Year's Day. Everybody's gotten their holidays over. You might have a little extra change in your pocket, some gift cards, some holiday money. And what better way to use that than winning things on Deal Dash? It's the online shopping platform that's actually fun. Deal Dash is the longest running penny auction website and app around. And some of the things you can get are just too good to be true. We've seen a car go for $900, a brand new TV for less than $2. Don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want and get on Deal Dash. Go to DealDash.com or download the app. And when you register, use that promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. That's our friends at Deal Dash. All right, well, we just talked about it. The biggest threat to the Eagles winning today and maybe getting a playoff spot is their rushing offense, which will be limited big time without Miles Sanders and with Jordan Howard nursing the shoulder injury. I don't think there's any question that Sanders gave the rushing offense an element when he came back from missing 3 games. In the time frame of him coming back, he carried the ball 74 times for 454 yards and averaged 6.13 yards per carry before that latest injury. Now, the Eagles have 5 200-yard games this year. Miles Sanders was a part of 3 of them. And in those 5 games that he played since coming back, the Eagles ran for a total of 1,003 yards on 195 carries, averaging 5.14 yards per carry. Not to make this all about Miles Sanders because they were running the ball without him, but the home run element that they had, I think, is something that they'll be missing today and we'll have to compensate for.
Yeah, we haven't seen that out of Gainwell. Not that he's been bad, and we saw earlier in the season he was in the rotation, but I'm waiting to see him. Could be a screen, could be a swing pass, line up outside, whatever it is. I'm looking for him to make one of those explosive plays, which you and I saw in training camp, but we've just not seen this season.
Right. Greg, let me read you real quick some of the in the 5 games he was back for the Eagles. 242 yards versus New Orleans, which had the #1 rush defense in like 20 years, right? 208 against the Giants, 185 against the Jets, 238 against Washington 2 games ago, and they also have a very good run defense, and then 130 against the Giants. In some of those games, they averaged between 5.8 and 6.3 yards per carry. I mean, they were just dominating.
Well, I think a big question today, because we know Sanders is out, is Jalen Hurts and his ankle. Because Jalen Hurts obviously hurt his ankle, and I think they intentionally cut down on the design quarterback run game. And he was a full participant this week,
Yes,
was he not?
he was. Yes, correct.
So my sense is, and particularly since they just played Washington 2 weeks ago when Hurts was not really part of the run game because he was still nursing the ankle. In fact, that was the week where if they had played Sunday, he might have been not have played, right, Adam? And then 2 days later, they were able to play Tuesday night that week, and he was able to go. But I think you'll see more design runs by Jalen Hurts now because he's healthy.
Did he look limited at all over the last couple weeks in terms of the setup with that ankle? Could you notice anything?
No, I can't speak to that. I didn't notice that. But there's no question they cut back on the design quarterback run game because he couldn't do it.
Well, Sirianni actually hinted at that.
Yeah, 2 rushes there.
Yeah. So I think you'll see more, again, assuming he's better. I would assume he is better. Adam, you know this better than I. You follow this more closely than I do.
He's better. Oh, you gave a number. Didn't you say on our show that would drop Friday that the 2 rushes were the fewest?
So to Greg's point, not only was the 2 carries for 7 yards his fewest as a pro, but if you look at the Eagles and their explosive runs this year, Miles Sanders, despite the injuries and missed time, far and away leads the running backs with 7 runs of 20 or more yards. The next closest is Boston Scott with 2. But, to your point, Jalen Hurts has 6.
Right.
So when Jalen Hurts is a runner, he does give them an explosive element. We haven't seen him running. And I was going to ask both of you guys if there's anything you've seen on tape, because when you watch him throw and get through the game, I haven't noticed him looking gimpy on the ankle. So do you think that he hasn't been running out of caution, or do you think he has been running out of we don't need him to run right now, let's save this for later when it counts, against the division teams here and into the playoffs?
Like I said, when you're dealing with this offense, early in the year, when you give the quarterback the option to pass it or run it, or give it or pull it. You're giving him more options. I think that you can take that element away based on his injuries or based on what the defense is giving you. You want to run the ball a little bit more. I think they've just taken away his ability to be able to run it or pull it so he can run based on his injury past, right? So they're trying to get him through the playoffs, and I think that's the reason. And if he is healthy, we can see some of those design runs to come back.
So that's kind of their dilemma, is that they need it now without Miles Sanders. They need an explosive element. So they may want to run him more, but again, they may have been curtailing it because they don't want him to get hurt.
Look, they've obviously run well without him being a factor in the run game, because they ran for 200 whatever yards against the Jets when he didn't even play.
Yep.
Right.
And they have run well without him.
Yeah.
I mean, even 130 yards this past week is not a small number.
No.
It's not. It hasn't been up to what they've been doing, but it's not a small number. But the reality is, the way the offense is structured and built, Hurts as a runner is a critical part of that. So they're not going to give that up. I mean, unless the game plays out, who knows how a game plays out. Let's say they get turnovers early and all of a sudden, in the middle of the first quarter, it's 17-0.
Right.
That changes the way you play the game.
Sure.
But in a normal game, I think Hurts as a foundational element of their run game is important.
Sure.
I was watching the matchup show this morning, so I want to expound on what you were saying on the show. When you say he's the foundation of what they do, what exactly does that mean? Is there specific calls?
Well, when you put him
Give
in
us
the
an
gun,
idea.
which is essentially what he's been in, okay? When he's in the gun, every single play as a defense, you have to be prepared for the zone read element. Okay, that becomes a factor on every single play. Normal down and distance play, you're not going to see it obviously on 3rd and 11. But every single play as a defense, there has to be an awareness of how you're going to play a zone read. Whether you want to have defensive ends crash, whether you want to have linebackers scrape, whether you want to have defensive ends feather it and try to play both. There's many ways to play it.
Sure.
But the point is, that now becomes a factor in how you play defense, because the quarterback can be a runner on any given play.
And I say this, your numbers are always well, because in that zone read, you're leaving a guy unblocked most of the time, right? So you're gaining a person to block another defender.
Correct. Sure.
Which is the key element to it. And if that guy cheats it, the quarterback gets the ball, and the guy that's assigned to the quarterback, guess where he is? He's 11 to 12 yards away from the line of scrimmage. So you have positive yards.
Let's get back to Miles real quickly and what they're going to be missing today. Greg, you have helped us in this show kind of debunk some of the myths about Miles not being a tough runner, Miles dancing too much around the hole. I mean, I thought in the last 5 games, other than his inability to stay healthy, and that's an issue again right now, he seemed to me like not a guy who's dancing too much or getting negative plays.
I think that followed him from Penn State and maybe in his rookie year. And then last year, I thought he ran very hard in 2020. And I don't think he's been a bouncer and a dancer.
Right.
I think, look, the inside zone run game is a foundational run in this offense, because that's the run that plays off the zone read 90% of the time. And he hits it up, and he hits it up inside.
Sure.
And he's been able, his biggest issue at times is ball security, but as far as hitting it up inside and running, he's not a small guy. He's not 195 pounds.
Right.
My guess is he's probably in the 210 to 215 range, so he's not small for a running back.
No.
So I don't think that's an issue personally, but to me, that's what the tape shows.
Adam, with him missing the rest of the regular season, the most games he will have played in his 3 years is 12 in a season. And we've already detailed the hamstring injuries. He was on the injury report with a quad 2 weeks ago, the hand now, ankle.
Yep.
This is the thing with Miles Sanders, he has not been the most durable of running backs. And typically, as we talked about on the pod this week, the Eagles like to extend somebody after 3 years to get a team-friendly deal.
Right.
I'm not sure that they're looking at this right now and saying this is the time to go sign Miles Sanders to an extension.
It's funny. I know technically it's not a contract year, but it is for as far as the Eagles are concerned, because they always look after the 3rd year. When Joe Banner was running the show in the early 2000s, it was after the 2nd year, but because of Joe, the rules were changed from 2 years to 3 years that you could extend a drafted player. So I don't see it happening. I just don't see them extending after the season. They're best to wait, see how well he does, and as they've done before, we just did it with a bunch of players in season, if he stays healthy next season, which is his last on his rookie contract, around Thanksgiving, if he's healthy, they can look to extend his contract, and then they've got leverage anyway, because it's the position where you don't want to say it's easy to get them, but it's the most plentiful position on offense.
The other point to me and Jay can certainly respond to this as well, is what ultimately happens with Jalen Hurts in the quarterback position. Because if Jalen Hurts is your quarterback, okay, and as we've discussed, even though fans might think he's the guy and it's a given, we know that that's not the case. But if indeed he becomes the quarterback, then you have the quarterback run game, and the back doesn't become as important because the scheme, it's like what the Ravens do, okay?
Yeah.
The scheme becomes more paramount than the specific back.
Sure.
And we saw what somebody like Gus Edwards did in Baltimore.
An
a
undrafted
back
free
that was an
agent.
undrafted free agent that would
Right.
carry 140 times a year for 3 straight years and average over 5 yards a carry.
Right.
So if they're going to go forward with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback, the scheme could well dictate how they view a running back in terms of what they
Sure.
pay.
Sure. And yet the Ravens did use that second-round pick on Dobbins, who should have been the guy this year. Obviously,
Yeah.
he got
Right.
hurt. Always fascinating to see.
But it was
because
a
Miles
second,
also
but it was
a
also a
second-round
second-round pick, not
Right.
a first-round
Not
pick.
a first,
The
exactly.
other thing I say, the strength of this team is the offensive
Right.
line, right? So when you couple Hurts with the offensive line, the running back is less important. And that's
Right.
just to
That's
be
just the
honest.
reality.
That's the
Right.
reality
Yeah,
of it. When you couple this offensive line with Jalen Hurts, Boston Scott's going to have a big game today.
Yeah.
That's just how that's going to work.
So, but how do they? All right, let's say Jalen Hurts is a runner and he can give you a couple of those explosive runs. He's still not going to carry the ball as much as Miles Sanders would have. Are they going to have trouble compensating for that home run element that they'll be missing? Because Miles Sanders has had a 20-plus yard run in something like 8 of the 9 games he's played this year.
But Boston Scott, when he's played, I'm not saying he's Miles Sanders. He's not.
He's not. He's
But
only got one.
when Boston Scott has played, does have an explosive element. He has some long runs. He has some memorable long runs in his last
Yep.
couple years. So I think it's definitely a step down, but it's not the worst situation for the Eagles.
Okay. Scott's kind of a grinder. I feel like he threads or straddles the line
Got some
between
juice.
a guy who's got some shiftiness,
Yeah.
but he's like we were saying about Miles, he's also a bigger. He's not small by any
No,
stretch.
he's
of
just
the
short.
means.
He's just
He's
short.
just
He
short.
looks like
Yeah.
he looks like a fire hydrant.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, he
We've
looks like
seen him
a
in
fire
training
hydrant.
camp. That's what he looks like.
It's philosophy and style, right?
Right.
Miles knows that at some point he can break the big one, right? He knows now that he has to get up inside first before he can get the big one. And the other guys have a different programming. The last 2 or 3 grunt yards, they're trying to go forward in order to get those last couple yards. Miles, on the other hand, is like, hey, I'm looking for the hole after I hit it inside so I can get that lane for a big play. It's just a different philosophy. So sometimes those guys don't get the big plays because they're trying to get the last 2-3 grunt yards.
Sure. Hey, one thing I think this team does well, no matter who's running the ball, is run the ball up the middle. As you mentioned, the inside zone is kind of
Well, that's because
big
it's
part of
a
what they do.
foundational part because it works off the zone read element.
Right. Do you think that has helped a guy like Kenneth Gainwell, who came out of Memphis?
Right.
And the big book on him, and Adam and I talked to even his head coach, was that, he tends to be like many young running backs. They want to bounce it outside, pass protection not the best. But as far as being an inside runner, I think
Well,
his
he's not-
touchdowns have come inside this
Yeah.
year.
Oh, yeah.
And he seems to.
Well, I remember watching Gainwell's tape coming out, and I didn't think he was a foundation back in the league in the sense that he could carry 20 times a week, but I didn't think that it was a negative to his game running inside.
Okay.
He did that in Memphis because so many college teams obviously have that zone run game element to them, and it's inside zone. So
Sure.
he did run inside.
Gotcha. How equipped would you guys say Washington is to handle a more zone read look by the Eagles today if the quarterback is going to be a runner? Obviously, they're down a few guys on defense in the back end, not as much on the front end, although they are missing Montez Sweat. But how have you seen them in general defending that kind of an offense?
What they're going to do, because they've done it all year, is they'll play with a 5-man defensive front. Now, it's not always 5D linemen, although they do play with 5D linemen. But oftentimes, and I think Jamin Davis is back this week.
Jamin Davis is back.
So very often they've played out of a base defense with a 5-1 front. And their base is big nickel, as I said, with 3 safeties, which you will see today. So you will see them play a 5-1-5. It will be a 5-1 front. Jamin Davis will be on the line of scrimmage on the edge. And Cole Holcomb, who's back as well,
He is.
will be the stacked backer. And they'll bring a safety down as the second box player.
Sure.
So you'll see them play with a 5-man front, whether it's 5D lineman or Jamin Davis is the 5th.
So sort of like when Jannard Avery
So they'll
comes
stretch
in for
the front.
Eagles.
They'll stretch the front.
Right. And so they will try to take away that ability of the quarterback to get to the edges.
Well, what it does is it allows the defense, the widest defender, to play further outside, and you still have 4 defenders theoretically to play the inside zone run game.
Right.
So it would be effective normally, but you got to remember they're doing this with backup players.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. So that's a different task in and of itself. So the Eagles has a high opportunity in order to make a lot of yards in the run game today. You got Jeremy Reed's in there for Landon, Collins. You got David Mayo in there for all the backup linebacker. Like there's a lot of elements missing. You're in with your 3rd and 4th corner playing today. It's tough. 4th and 5th corner. Sorry.
I imagine you played with some ankle injuries throughout your career, being a wide receiver.
Yeah, you have to.
All right. So what faces Jalen Hurts today? He ran the ball twice for 7 yards last week. That was an all-time low for him in both categories. So again, maybe they're just preserving him, or maybe he's just not comfortable yet being unleashed.
You know what? I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing, because we've seen Jalen Hurts probably throw the ball these last 2 weeks probably better than he has most of the season. So there has to be some correlation. Okay, is it a mentality change? I don't know.
They've actually come out throwing more in the first quarter than they have in previous games.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying, but he's been more accurate than most. You know, he had 5 or 6 drops this past week. Still completed a lot of passes.
Do you think they need him to be more of a runner though today without Miles?
I just think you need the element available. That's it.
Say it again.
You need the element available. So if he can run it, 5, 6 times effectively, the element is still there in order for them to be able to do what they need to in the run game and also the play action game.
All right. Well, let's talk about Hurts as a passer, because as you mentioned, he was victimized by drops last week. I forget who. I think it was you guys who said on the Q&A show, and I thought it was a really good point, that as the season has gone on, I remember earlier in the year, ball placement on some really routine passes was sort of problematic for him. It was inconsistent at times. I think that part has improved. I mean, we could talk about that. Maybe I'm sure there are issues where it's not great, but on the 10 to 15 yarder, like the drops all last week, I didn't see guys having to reach real far. It seemed like your ball was put in their hands.
No.
Those are some of the areas where he wasn't great at earlier in the year, even on the easy ones. It does seem like that is an area that he's worked on and is giving his receivers or pass catchers a better chance to make plays on.
I agree with that. 10, 15, and then he's been really good at, and he's been, setting his feet to throw. I remember him rolling out left this past game against the Giants, stopping and throwing it back to Devontae Smith. He would have threw that ball on a run earlier in the season, wouldn't have got his feet underneath him. And he's doing little small things, and he's getting better at it. The ball has been placed really well. To me, now the problems that he's having is down the field.
Right.
He's consistently late down the field throws, and sometimes I don't know if he trusts his arm strength. The pass to Quez Watkins should have been running away from the defender, threw it up the field, a balloon pass that should have been intercepted.
Yes.
Just terrible safety
Yeah,
play.
I trust me. We'll get to the downfield element. I'm trying to get some positive on Jalen Hurts before we bury him in it. But Adam, you remember that we had that discussion where people were telling us who watch the tape that his ball placement on the easy ones, not that there's anything easy in the NFL, but they call them the layups.
There are relatively routine throws that guys
throws,
you just have to make those.
Right, and those were ones where he was not 100% on, not even 90% earlier in the year. Now, seemingly much better.
I would say so. Yeah, the issue is, and we talked about this last week during the show, is the progression reading coming off one.
Right.
But you guys were very fair about it. It's not going to happen for him right now at this point of his career. Later on, if he's the Eagles quarterback next year, you hope he gets 2 and 3. And that's a big off-season challenge for him, in addition to the mechanics, which we've talked about really since last spring, is just to get him off that safety. Go to 2, go to 3. And then the deep ball is the other one. The deep ball accuracy is just, you were just talking about it. With the issues that Washington has in their secondary, they're down safeties and corners. Not that you're going to throw it more, but when you throw it, you want the big play element.
Sure.
Quez Watkins is the guy who could do it. Rager could do it, obviously. They need to get that back. They need to get that back.
Yeah.
Well, how much do you want to get into Hurts now? Because there's a couple of things to talk about here.
I do, but before we get into deep ball stuff, I do want to see your take on any area that you feel like he's improved on significantly since the beginning of the year.
I don't think you can separate, and I know Jay can speak to this as well, because he knows about pass game concepts. I think you have to understand when you watch the tape what the Eagles ask him to do, okay? And the pass game, they don't ask him to do very much.
Correct.
The route concepts are very basic. There's a ton of half-field reads. they're not asking him to do a lot right now. And as Adam knows, because we've worked together for a lot of years, you know by what a coaching staff believes about a quarterback by what they ask him to do in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the route concepts are very basic. I mean, they started the game with snag flat. They ran that twice. That's basic. Mm-hmm. And by the way, he's not the only quarterback asked to do that.
Right.
But there were a ton of flood concepts in this game. It's all half-field reads.
Mm-hmm.
And then they helped him with a flood concept when it wasn't, he didn't quite see it and it wasn't open. They helped him. They added a tunnel screen element to it so it would clear out the throw, and he hit Rager for 13 yards. Mm-hmm. So, but it would clear out the underneath coverage. You know, these are the things you see on tape. This is what the pass game is.
Sure.
And that's what he is. So the question becomes is, do they believe this is what he is, or is this just what he is now, and he can get better and better as he continues to play more?
Right.
He missed a lot of those early in the season.
Yeah.
I will say that from Jeff. Jeff is trying to get us to, force good things out. So he did miss a lot of.
Not force, just part of the conversation.
No,
We'll get into the criticism.
But I think you would agree, seeing the route concepts, right? I mean,
yes. So what you're saying is that they're simple enough concepts that these should be completed.
Correct.
Right. Which
And by the way,
that's
that's called good coaching.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, so
Putting a guy in position to succeed.
And it's based on where you think your player is.
correct.
Right.
In terms of his development.
So if you're Washington, though, I mean, there's an element of kind of predictability or basicness that you're saying that if you're a defensive coordinator, you kind of know what the Eagles are going to try to do. You know they're going to run the ball, but even when they throw the ball, you kind of have an idea of what they want to do based on a season's worth of tape that says it's not a very complex passing offense. Correct?
Correct.
Fair.
All right.
And but there's a flip side to that.
Uh-huh.
Washington is high percentage zone coverage.
Right.
So the Eagles know what they're going to get as well. Mm-hmm. So now they can scheme and design their pass game in specific situations to attack a predictable coverage.
They've completely, Greg, you correct me if I'm wrong, weren't they more man earlier in the season?
Until week 10 against the Tampa Bay Bucks, that was kind of the delineation point of their season in terms of their coverage. Mm-hmm. They were actually heavy cover one until week 10. That started their 4-game winning streak, and they've been heavy zone coverage since then. They play man on third down, maybe 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. You know, 3rd and 10 they won't, and they'll blitz on third down. But other than that, they are heavy zone.
Second most amount of zone coverage over the last 2 months.
Right.
That tells you what Greg's point was. They've changed it, and would you say it's worked when they've had guys healthy?
Yeah, well, I think they changed due to injuries. I think they had to change in their mind.
They were bad early in the season.
And then
really
they won
bad.
4 in a row playing this way, so they've kind of stayed with it. And now they're stuck because they're playing with 4th and 5th, corners, basically.
It helps us, though, right? Like you said earlier, this a zone defense for a younger player that may have limited, range as far as field vision. It helps him. It's predictable. The throws are easier in zone.
Yep.
That's how it is.
Right.
Next week against Cowboys will be a lot different challenge because you're forced to be an accurate and precise
That is correct.
quarterback because they're going to challenge you a little bit more.
And probably the answer to why the Eagles have come out passing a little bit more early lately, seeing a lot more zone from the start, which, as you mentioned, will change probably next week. Let's get into the deep ball because you had already started to talk about, and this happens a lot, a play that looks really good to the naked eye. Wow, Quez Watkins jumps up, catches the ball, 41 yards, great thing. But then you micro-dissect the play and see some things that might be fishy. Now, on that play, I had asked you about earlier in the week. It did, just from looking at it on the All-22, it looked like Quez was open and then had to take himself into coverage. And you're saying that's because of the throw.
That's because of the throw. Once his angle is set as a receiver, when you run that deep post, that corner post, once your angle is set, the quarterback sees that angle and puts the ball on that angle that you're set. If you have to adjust up the field, it's usually a bad play altogether because you're trying to run away from defenders. You're not trying to run toward defenders.
Right.
And he threw the ball toward a defender, and he threw it without conviction. That's the thing. He threw it without conviction. He threw it to an
Is that
area
a body?
up
How
in
can
the
you
air.
tell he threw it without conviction?
Because when the ball comes out and it just popcorns up there, it's like I'm just trying not to miss the throw.
Okay.
Right? It's rather than when you see a guy get back in his step and you see a guy throw it with conviction and passing, I know where this ball is going.
Right.
It's not a question. I'm throwing it with confidence.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's how you can tell. When you see a guy come off the back, his back foot, and you see him let the ball go, Marty Morningwood preaching to the quarterbacks over and over again. Throw the damn ball. Stop aiming it. Stop guiding it. Stop hoping.
Right.
Throw it to a spot. That's how you play that
The
position.
crazy thing was that he should have had conviction because early in the route, it appears that Quez Watkins is wide open on the over. Greg, do you remember that play specifically and how it unfolded?
Yeah, I made notes on it, so let me see what I said here. Yeah, I mean, it was a throwback concept because it was Hurts booted right behind 7-man protection. They got the coverage that they probably anticipated, which put Watkins on the safety. But the safety is a post safety, so you want to throw it. You want to take him across the field. You don't want to throw it in the middle, kind of which is where he threw it, because that allowed Love, the post safety, Julian Love, to be in position to make a play.
Back to right.
Right. Now, if you want to go back to the week before, too, against Washington, since that's the opponent this week, when he hit Goddard on the 45-yarder on the post wheel, which was clearly designed for Goddard. Okay, they were in 3 tight end personnel. It was clearly designed for Goddard. That was not a good throw either. And in fact, because it was Jeremy Reeves, who's a backup safety and not a very athletic player, if that was a better safety, that ball would have been picked off.
Right.
You know, that was not a well-thrown ball on a deep throw either.
Okay. So you mentioned Goddard. The other play that sticks out from that game that kind of drew mixed reaction is Goddard wide open in the end zone. Jalen Hurts throwing it to Quez Watkins across the middle.
He talked about that. That went viral.
Yes, that went viral. And what's interesting about it is that the team and Hurts gave a very good explanation of why it was the right throw. Right. Couple of Emmanuel Acho came out and said they're correct if they're saying the defense is what they said it was, but it wasn't because after the snap it changed, and he showed how it wasn't the bracket coverage they thought that they were getting. I've had different people I spoke to say it's a play that he made the right decision. Another one would say a veteran quarterback might have been able to sense that Goddard was going to be open there based on what he was seeing. So where do you guys fall on that?
Well, let's understand one thing, and Jay can definitely speak to this. They busted the coverage.
Right. Which you can never anticipate.
So if you want to say that he should have gone to the Twins side, you know, to the Goddard side as his first read, I don't know how they coach that. You may know how they coach that. That's a different thing. But you can't say he should have gone to someone based on the fact that they busted a coverage. You don't come to the line of scrimmage and say, they're going to bust the coverage over here, so I'm going to go over there.
Right.
So now it gets down to how they teach it and how they coach it. And unless you want to say Jalen Hurts was wrong, and he gave a very detailed explanation, which would lead me to believe he was not wrong, because the explanation comes from a coach. He didn't just make that up.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
That's how he's coached. You can't say that, oh, they're going to bust the coverage to the right side of the
You can't,
formation.
yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
That was a proud moment for the coach, though. Hadn't it be, right?
Yeah.
This guy explained it that well.
Yeah.
There had to be a
Absolutely.
a good moment for the coach. And yes, I agree with that. You're taught, and I say this all the time, and most of the time, 99% of the time, is going to help you out. What he did, you have to eliminate plays beforehand.
Correct.
And you can't anticipate somebody to bust the coverage. You just can't. You have to try to eliminate the play as quick as possible. Yes, will you see with emotion or something that the guy may bust it and you're a veteran quarterback and can be able to pick it up? You may. But for Jalen Hurts and where he is in his progression as a football player, if you can eliminate to get to a right position as quick as possible, that's what you're trying to do.
And I know Emmanuel Acho. He's a defensive player. Come on.
Manny, really, Greg, I like your point last week when we brought this subject up. You said, look, you thought, based on your tape study, it's like he knows what he's going to call in the huddle. He's going to carry it out.
He's going to carry it out.
Right. So you can't really.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that at this point in his career. You know, you have to understand where he came from, okay? First of all, he played at Alabama, and say what you want, but he got benched at Alabama, okay? Then he went to a very highly schemed college offense with Lincoln Riley in a conference with very bad defense where there's a ton of voids and a ton of openings. So this is his background. So now he comes to the NFL, and you're trying to mix and match, teaching him, you know, playing him in a way that he understands based on his background, but also now taking him to the next level because now we're in the NFL. So you're trying to give him things based on film study. Jason knows this better than I do. Based on film study during the week and anticipation of coverages in given field location situations, down and distance situations. So you basically want him to be an executor. And if he doesn't see it, you can count on his legs. But at this point, you're not asking him to be a full field 3-4 progression reader.
Right.
That's not part of the deal right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll say the throw that we kind of overlooked because it was completed is Devontae Smith's long pass on the right sideline.
This week?
This past week.
Yeah.
Right? That was Jalen Hurts clutching when he didn't have to. He
Yeah.
kind of double pumped it. His arm isn't strong enough to get the ball out there. Devontae Smith was open 3 yards. That's a touchdown. Ends up being a 40, 50-yard gain, but a 40, 50-yard gain in comparison to a touchdown is a big difference, right?
Sure,
Devontae
sure,
Smith
sure.
had to come back to get
Yep.
the ball high
Great
pointed
point.
when the ball should have been out there, and he didn't see it well enough, so he clutched it. And when he pumps it, he's not anticipating like reshuffling his feet because he know he can't get it there. So he just throws it off his back foot, which doesn't have enough strength to carry that pass
Right.
out. So there's a little things being on time with the throw, trusting it, like I said, throwing it with conviction, get the ball out there.
Right. All those things that you imagine they will spend some time in the offseason if
Without
he's coming back to
question.
be the
Yeah.
guy to.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars, including the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you go out and see them in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get the best deal. All right, let's continue to talk about what Washington's defense will do against this Eagles offense today. Obviously, they are missing some guys. They got some guys back. Dallas Goedert had a huge game against them last time around, 135 yards on 7 catches. That was a career high for him. But they were without Cameron Curl, Greg, who you've liked in their defensive backfield.
Well,
for a couple
I
of years
remember
now.
watching him last year. He started with Washington as a slot corner.
Right.
Then Collins got hurt last year, and Curl went in and played Collins' spot. This was before they were playing big nickel. And I actually thought Collins, based on his tape last year, Curl, based on his tape last year, played that position better than Collins. So I knew that when this year came around, he was going to play, that they were not going to put him on the bench.
Right.
So I personally think that's one reason they made the transition to big nickel as a foundation defense, because Curl needs to be on the field.
Right, right. He's more, would you say his coverage
He's a
acumen's
combo
up?
player because
Okay.
he played in the slot, he can cover. He's their tight end matchup because Collins is not a tight end matchup. We've seen him do that in his career when he was with the Giants. That's not his game. It's funny how this works. I mentioned how you can tell about quarterbacks by what coaches do. You can tell about other players too. I remember watching Collins come out of Alabama, and Alabama plays dime, 6 DBs. So you know where Nick Saban put Collins? And yeah, he was a first-round pick. He was a dime linebacker.
I was going to say inside. Yeah.
That tells
What
you
is-
what you need
what
to
he's-
know,
right.
okay? Because if he's going to make him a dime linebacker, then he's not a deep, rangy safety in
Yeah.
the NFL.
Sure.
And
Giants took it though.
Right. Yeah.
Greg, wasn't Collins, didn't they move him to sort of a quasi-linebacker this year?
Well,
a little bit?
Pretty much.
He didn't like it, I know that.
He's still quote-unquote a safety, so I call him a safety. That's why I say it's big nickel.
Sure.
But they predominantly moved him to a position where he was often in the box or an overhang player where he's kind of just off the box.
Yeah.
He became that guy
Isn't that
for
kind
them.
of what Malcolm Jenkins was in the last year with the Eagles?
To some degree, but yeah.
At some point, Collins. I'll be surprised if Collins is not an inside linebacker or not inside
Yeah,
linebacker,
yeah.
Like
but
Mark
outside
Barron.
linebacker.
Mark
Yeah,
Barron.
inside
Mark
linebacker.
Mark Barron,
linebacker.
great
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Curl played against Dallas. Dalton Schwartz crushed them. 8 for 82 and a touchdown on 9 targets.
Yeah, but they don't play. See that?
They're not a man.
They're not a man team. So
Right.
again, you got to be careful about that.
But he did well.
Right.
But his
Yeah.
ability, his instincts, his ability
Right.
to defend against the pass should help them today. What about? I think the Giants have done it twice in their 2 games now. It seems like they've blitzed from the slot a lot to try to keep. I imagine they were blitzing from the slot to give a different look to Jalen Hurts and try to keep him from breaking contain. Did you notice that too? With the Giants' approach to defending him?
Yeah, I mean,
safety
I think,
late and then a slot
yeah,
blitz.
I mean, I think teams always, All teams will try to do it because the last place you want Hurts to escape is to his right.
Correct.
That's where he wants to go.
Right. But
So-
I don't remember. I guess I don't remember teams doing it as much as the Giants did until that first matchup.
Yeah,
Which
I
was
can't.
about
you
3 or
may
4
remember
weeks
that
ago?
more
Yeah, I
than-
remember. I remember. It's just speed. The speed element,
Yeah.
right? So it's blitzing. It's a blitz in a certain side, like Greg said, but it's also speed on speed.
Right.
So if he does this, a guy that's chasing that can possibly catch him, and that's the gist of it. You don't want a bigger guy where he can make him miss, linebacker types. He can make that guy miss and get loose. But a faster, quicker player is going to be able to match his athleticism, and that's what that's based
You know,
on.
it's interesting with quarterbacks that can move. A lot of coaches, and I remember speaking to a defensive coach, and I can't remember who it was now because it goes back to when Michael Vick played. What a lot of coaches try to do is they try to force the quarterback to move, knowing how he'll move, because they know this from film study, you know, more so than I do. I mean, when a team plays the Eagles, you know, they've got 8 guys who are studying just this. I mean,
Right.
I'm one guy, you know, and I'm trying to watch every team every week.
It feels like you're 8 though. Greg.
Right, yeah. So what often teams will do is they will pressure in such a way to force the quarterback to move in the way they want him to move and the way they know he will move, and then have someone else there to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, again, I don't know what Washington will do, but that's what a lot of teams do with quarterbacks that can move effectively and have defined movements. Hurts almost always moves to his right.
What's the book on Jack Del Rio, Adam, at this point?
Look, you got to give him credit. They were at times not competitive defensively. The word I had heard was just the first 5 or 6 games, guys were out of position, playing hero ball,
Right.
not doing your job. You're trying to do somebody else's. They're getting
so
out of
much
position.
talent. It's
Right.
amazing.
Remember, they were the worst defense statistically for the first 6 weeks.
Right.
Then, as Greg said, they made a decision somewhere around week 8. through
Week 10 against Tampa.
Week 10, okay.
And they beat Tampa.
They went from playing a high percentage man to now the second most amount of zone coverage.
And it's funny,
Yeah.
not that this is relevant to the
Yeah.
Eagles, but I remember watching that tape and thinking that even Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, he had moments in that game where he kind of didn't see it right, because I guarantee in their preparation during the week, they prepared for more man than zone based on what Washington had done all season long.
Yeah.
Sure. The old sneak attack got him in.
You know, so even Brady
Very
was,
rarely.
got back in a
Unscattered
couple
look.
times.
That's
Yeah.
an unscattered look,
Yeah.
as coaches
Unscattered
talk
look.
about.
Hear it all the time. Who rushes the passer for Washington today? No Chase Young, no
Yep.
Montez Sweat. I mean, where do they get their pass rush
Casey
from?
I was just going to
Tuhel.
mention
Casey
former-
Tuhil. How about Shaka Tony, former Penn Stater?
Yep, he's out there.
Yeah.
They just last week, Greg. What happened to their defense? Just didn't show up. What? A lot of mental bust. What?
Well,
did
you know,
notice?
it's funny you say that because they did get some pressure on Prescott. It was weird.
Earlier in the game,
They
They
did
gave
get
a ton of
pressure.
points.
Early in the game.
Yeah,
Early
and
in
then
the game they got pressure.
they did get pressure early in the game, and then there were just a lot of voids in coverage. I thought they made a couple of mistakes. I didn't jot down every single assignment breakdown,
yeah.
but I thought they made a couple of mistakes. Maybe I made it pointed out in my notes, but I remember there was one. I think he hit Cooper on a seam ball, which was against split safety, and you should never hit a seam ball versus split safety.
You talking about the defense? I think it was a broken. Wasn't it a defensive offside penalty? It was a free play.
Maybe, but you know,
Yeah.
see, the whole point of playing split safety, one of the whole
Keep
points of
everything.
playing split safety is to take away seams.
Right.
Because if you're going to play single high, seams are there unless you're going to have an underneath player carry the seams.
Sure.
Okay, but if you're playing split safety, the seams should not be there.
Right.
And
Only if it's cover 2
Right.
and you're able to bend it. But
correct.
It shouldn't be.
Right.
It shouldn't
but
be
that's more of a
on-
bender to me.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the only
That
way.
almost becomes more like a dig to me
But
than
he-
a true straight seam.
Yes, but
Yeah.
he did catch it up the seam.
Yeah.
I think he only threw it because it was a broken play.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, well, we will see what Jack Del Rio and Washington have in store for today for the Eagles offense. Obviously, Washington down some significant personnel yet again on defense. We thank you again for tuning in to Inside the Birds pregame live with Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. Now, let's hear from our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook.
This is my city. This is a city that knows how to play. A city that's in it for the win. So I go to the place that gets that. Where they know how Philly likes to play. And where I know my seat is always ready. This is my place.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Remember, catch the Inside the Birds watch party today at kickoff. Adam Kaplan, Jeff Mosher, we're here to entertain you. Enjoy watching the game, and of course, place your bets here at Rivers Casino.
Kaplan entertain you?
Kaplan entertains.
Actually, I was going to ask you, you didn't tell jokes today.
The stand-up comic will be back.
Then I will not be coming.
Hopefully, Greg's sitting in the first row. We need an easy target.
That is true.
I'm going to throw spitballs at you.
You'll be heckling?
Yeah.
All right. It is the time of the show that we always do. It's our weekly segment with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quinton Mikell called Q's Views. And in this episode of Q's Views, we talk about the Eagles' mentality when the postseason clinch is on the line. Let's talk. All right, it is time for Q's Views with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quinton Mikell. Q, we're coming down the stretch here, and the Eagles have a chance to lock up a playoff spot today. They've got to win. Some other things have to happen. But let's just focus on what the Eagles can control, and that's how they played today against Washington without Miles Sanders, a banged-up Jordan Howard. Obviously, a big part of what they do is running the ball. What are you expecting from them today with probably Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell leading the way?
I expect them to kind of go back to offensively what the game plan kind of looked like early in the season. Multiple sets. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is starting to progress, so they're going to have to rely on him a little bit more. But I expect a lot more versatility in the run game and creativity in the passing game. I think the easiest way and probably the best way to manage this game is run the ball, quick, short, easy passes. Take your shots down the field when you get the opportunity. But I think the biggest part is going to be the play of Jalen Hurts and how smart and intellectual he is with the game plan.
All right, this is why I love having you on this segment. I want you to put your Jack Del Rio hat on. You are the defensive coordinator for the Washington football team. You know that what they'd like to do is run the ball, but they're down two really significant pieces. How are you defending the Eagles today? What would you try to do?
Well, for me, I think the biggest thing is if I'm looking at this game, I'm going to see if Jalen Hurts can beat me. I'm gonna make sure he doesn't beat me. I'm gonna let the running game kind of come as it goes. Like, let me rephrase that. I'm going to stop the run and make sure that I take away the number one receivers for the Eagles. So if you take away I'm blanking, Devontae Smith, take him away, make sure he's doubled. Play smart in the passing game, and then pick and choose your opportunities to come after Jalen Hurts. I think that's the biggest thing right there. So, take away Goddard, take away Smith, and then just be sound in the running game. Make sure that you're in your gaps. You don't, overstep a gap and let someone hit down the pipe. I think that's the easiest way, and try to make sure that Jalen beats you.
Do you bring extra safety into the box, or are you bringing that safety late? Are you blitzing from the edges, doing anything maybe the Giants tried to do?
Definitely going to be blitzing from the edges. I'd be coming with some cornerback blitzes. Rotate the safeties down late. Don't let them see a pre-snap. A lot of movement from the safeties post-snap, because I feel like once Jalen gets the ball in his hands, especially in passing downs, that's one thing he's got to get a little bit better at, is seeing the entire field. So if you're moving your safety late, moving your linebackers late, I think that'll actually help the Washington football team a little bit better. So if I'm looking at this, I'm going to try to confuse Jalen. I'm going to try to stop the run and take away Goddard and Smith the best way I can.
Sure. Well, now let's change sides here. Let's say you're Jonathan Gannon. You're seeing a quarterback in Taylor Heinicke that you didn't see the first time around. In fact, the last four quarterbacks are first-timers against the Eagles. Do you think he opens it up a little bit, or does he rely on the past success over the last 3 weeks and say, I don't really need too much pressure for this quarterback to beat me?
So it's really frustrating, because I think these were great opportunities the last few games to open up the playbook, to get some pressure on the quarterback, show some different looks, and create opportunities for turnovers and get more possessions for your offense. And it hasn't happened. And yes, while the game has been in the Eagles' favor towards the end, yes, the defense has played well, but I always tend to think, like, how many more turnovers could we have gotten? How many more sacks could we have gotten? as well as they played by playing basic defenses, how much better would it have been if we'd added pressure? And how much better did these quarterbacks look because there was no pressure? So, the Taylor Heinicke is a little bit confusing, not confusing, but he's a little bit worrisome for me because he's kind of a wild card. He's a gunslinger type mentality. He will get out of the pocket. He'll run. He'll make plays down the field. And so you obviously have to be smart with coming after him. But I think for me, I would love to see some aggression out of the play calling. I love to see, coming after him and forcing Taylor to be uncomfortable, forcing him to make mistakes, and then put them out of this game early. Put them away early, get after them early, and then you can kind of worry about what happens at the end of the game and then moving forward. So, it hasn't happened, and it's hard for me to. It's hard to break it down and say it's not working because it is working the way they're calling the game plan. But I feel like there's so much more potential right there.
Understood. Maybe you'll get a New Year's Day gift and you'll see a little extra pressure. The Eagles are obviously knocking on the door of the playoffs. Do you sense them getting tight at all? And do you think they'll be tight today? I asked that because we've seen some uncharacteristic drops lately. And we know that in a division game today, one team is trying to make the playoffs. The other is probably just trying to get a little bit of revenge and end the season on a better note. So do you think this game has the menu for a little tightness on one side?
Yeah, absolutely. I especially offensively, I feel like there's a lot of tightness, and it's coming from a good place because it's coming from a place where they want to succeed. It's coming from a place where the players want to get that playoff berth, and kind of show the growth of this team over the course of the season. And but when you have a young team, that's when you got to have the veterans on the team to kind of stabilize everything, stabilize the rest of the group, understand that, listen, each play at a time, focus on every single play, good or bad, then you go over to the next play. And so I do sense a little tightness. It's coming from a good spot, but I think a good coach will settle his team down early, keep it very simple, nice, easy, short passes in the passing game, focus on the guys, telling them, listen, just look the ball in. Don't worry about getting any run after the catch. Look the ball in first and then go from there. Short, easy progressions towards the end of the game. And so to me, I think that's really the way that they have to look at this. And defensively, it's really got to come down to those vets. Most of the vets are on defense. Most of those guys, they've got to come out and fire everybody up. They've got to come out, tackle well. Special teams got to play well. And then everything else offensively will fall in line.
What's this game going to look like?
It's crazy. It could be all over the place. I think this game it's going to be very physical. We expect that at the first game, but with the Washington football team coming off of that blowout loss, they're kind of tail spinning a little bit. They're getting some guys back from the COVID stuff. And so I expect it's going to be a very physical, tough game. I do think the Eagles have enough in the offensive game plan and creativity wise to make a difference and kind of pull away towards the end. So I think the first few quarters first half into the middle of the third quarter is probably going to be a tight game. And then I see the Eagles kind of breaking it open towards the end of the game.
Kind of like the last two games were in that kind of a sense. And that makes sense because they've all been division games. All right, what's the final score going to be, Q?
I think this is a tough one to call. But I think the Eagles just have too much. Even with the loss of Miles Sanders, I just think that they have too much to lose. They have too much going for them. The Washington football team's kind of tail spinning. So I'm gonna pick the Eagles to win this one. Let's say 28-14.
All right, 28-14. The Eagles are on the roll. That means you are too. So you're picking the Eagles again, 28-14. Happy New Year, Q, and we'll do it again next week on Q's Views, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you. Happy New Year's to you and everyone else.
Maybe.
All right, great stuff as always from former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quinton Mikell on Q's Views. Now you can catch Q and Jason Avant doing the Q&A show. Their show drops every Thursday morning on the Inside the Birds platforms at 6 a.m. Get up early to listen to Q&A, break down the game. Also, get up early and make a phone call to our friends Jack and Zach and James. I almost said Jack and Zames. We'll go with Zach and James. That's our team at Public Square and Rebel Hill. They work together to bring Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Production to produce your webcast, podcast, live show, anything else you can dream of.
Yep.
Commercials,
Anything.
whatever you want. They can do it. They're awesome. As long as you get their names right, they'll treat you really well. And even if you don't, they'll probably treat
Zach
you
with
all
a
right.
K or
Z-A-C-K.
H?
Z-A-C-K, Zach, all right? This team can bring it to life. All right, we are in hour 2 of Inside the Birds pregame live. Still plenty of time to get down here to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Take advantage of the great food and drink specials, the games. They already got some soccer on the big screen. They got our show on the other big
It's a
screen.
big betting sport, by the way, soccer.
Soccer is
lot
a
of
big
people-
betting
when,
sport.
when we first started here, there was a line of 30 people to wager on a soccer match. I'm like,
Yeah, we got here. We couldn't figure out what the people were putting money on.
why are
Then we
they so
realized it was
excited about soccer?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was too early for
and
football.
they were going out of their mind.
They were. All right, let's continue to talk about this game. The Eagles are on a very impressive streak, and it's not just their 3-game winning streak. It's the 4th straight game that they're going to face a quarterback that has never faced them before. This was supposed to happen 2 games ago with Heinicke. He couldn't play. It wound up being our friend Garrett Gilbert, who
Our friend?
our friend Garrett Gilbert.
friend
You know,
Garrett?
don't you personally know Garrett Gilbert?
I do not.
Do you know Gail Gilbert?
Remember his dad who
Yeah,
played
I
for
do
the Bills?
remember his dad.
All right, well then
And the
you're a
Seahawks.
loose connection friend there.
I do,
all right,
yeah, I
'cause
do
you knew who
remember his dad.
was.
Garrett Gilbert was a big time recruit coming out of high school.
He was.
Played
He
at
was.
SMU?
Yeah, but he started at Texas, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I believe he got to Texas when Quinton Mikell might have been the starter.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then transferred. I believe that to be the case. Someone listening can either
He's
tell
a-
me I'm right or correct me, but
He's a true journeyman. I mean, he is Garrett Gilbert. And the Eagles, by the way, have won 6 out of 8 games, 3 in a row.
Yes, they
Which
have.
is not what we thought.
well, you know, I'm glad you started with the Washington offense, Eagles defense, because the Eagles defense has played a lot better. I mean, you might know that. I know fantasy people probably know this, and I don't know, Jeff, if you're a big fantasy
You know,
guy.
he plays.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
Okay. But in the last 8 games, the Eagles defense has only allowed 1 team to rush for 100 yards.
Right.
You know, which that's pretty good.
Well, I think that kind of invites the great question, the existentialist question of, are the Eagles that much better on defense, or is it this list of quarterbacks that I was about to mention that they played over the last few weeks? And I know the quarterbacks are not running backs. I'll get to that in a second.
The answer's going to be it's a combo platter.
It's a combo, right?
Yeah.
But you know, Zach Wilson. It started with Zach Wilson, then it was Garrett Gilbert, and then of course it was Jake Fromm. And I got to say that was, even with Mike Glennon replacing him, that was probably the worst quarterback game I've seen in 20 years. I mean, it was that bad. And then of
By
course,
both, yeah.
By both, it was
Wasn't
terrible.
just-
it
yeah,
was
well,
just
wasn't just
absolutely
Fromm.
terrible.
Yep.
And then of course they'll see Taylor Heinicke today for the first time. He did not play against them last year.
Who's
and
not
vice
been bad
versa.
this year, by the way.
I was going to get into that. So,
Yeah.
Craig, I was going to ask you actually, Adam, I want to start with you because we know Heinicke's coming off a pretty bad game. The entire game was awful last year, but this guy has 7 passer ratings over 90, completes about 65% of his passes, more than 3,000 passing yards. You know, considering he wasn't supposed to be the starter, Ryan Fitzpatrick was. Also leads the NFL in interceptions, so we'll get into that. But what have you commonly heard around the league about Taylor Heinicke, and what he does well?
Yeah, he has surprised a lot of personnel people. No, first of all, he wasn't drafted in 2015.
Right.
People look at his funky delivery. He's not really big physically. Pretty good athlete for the position. In terms of his 40, he's really good. But he has surpassed what anyone thought. You know, he's been with a bunch of teams, and Scott Turner's been his champion.
Sure.
Every time I run into Scott Turner, we laugh because Scott was the one guy back at the East West Shrine game in 15, and that's where his scouting started because coaches can't scout during the season. And they're lucky they have Heinicke. Let's not forget what he did last year, coming literally off the street against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay really didn't have much tape to look at, and he did a great job. And in fact, they beat him again this year.
Yeah.
They lost last year, but they pushed him.
In fact, that was their
That was their
toughest
drive
playoff
at the end of the
right?
game
Yeah.
where they had like a 10, 11-minute drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is, when you look at him, you go, there's no way this guy can make it. I think what Washington, if they're being honest with themselves, they found their backup of the future. They made a mistake of not getting a guy that they could build with, and maybe they do it this year. We'll see how good this draft class looks, but he has been, I would say he's far surpassed what people thought he could do at this level.
Okay. Craig, when you look and watch the full body this year, who is Taylor Heinicke?
He's the quarterback for Washington.
Show's over. Thank you. That's analysis you can't get anywhere
yeah.
else.
Give us.
That was just like a reference to the airplane movie, you know?
We're going to give you. This is the new segment.
Surely you can't be serious,
Right. Hospital. What's a hospital? It's a big building with patients.
From the airplane, right?
Yeah.
What does the tape tell you when you spoke to it?
Well, I normally don't talk to the tape because
Really?
if I did, they'd get me into a straitjacket and then wheel me
We're
out.
off the rails now.
Right.
Well,
So,
you always say the tape told you that.
The comedy.
Well, so Taylor Heinicke is this. Taylor Heinicke is a guy that clearly understands his offense and what he's looking at. Okay, he's short in stature. He does not have a big arm. The arm is definitely an issue because there's throws he simply can't make. When you watch his tape, you see the ball does not come out really well.
Right.
Okay, so there's simply things he can't do. If you go back to last year's playoff game against Tampa, he actually had a very good game because that coaching staff did a really, really good job of defining the throws for him against coverages that they anticipate. That's what you have to do with him. You have to define the throws for him against anticipated coverages. But I will say this, he has very good second reaction ability. He's willing to use it. As Adam said, he's a much better athlete than you might think. He moves around well, and he's willing to move around, okay? And he will hold on to the ball until he feels he has a throw to make.
Okay.
He's not a throwaway quarterback.
All right.
And despite his size, there's almost a physical toughness, competitive element to his game.
Okay.
Not in the fact that he's going to run over people, but he does not play like a soft, small quarterback.
Gotcha. I'm going to make a comparison based on just me watching him, and then you guys can just shred me for it because that always happens. But a little Jeff Garcia-ish.
What do you think?
You play with
I
Garcia.
think he's a little bit smaller than Jeff, right? As far as stature.
I mean, more
Right.
than how he plays the
Size,
game, but
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so, but running around, little quirky, not the biggest arm, had to play with anticipation type. I can see that's not a terrible comparison at all.
Oh, man, I'm
your
done.
worst
I'm
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
So now the show's over.
Now it's
so
over.
Right.
Now I retire.
The thing that he gets like that teams can get a lot on him is tip passes. That's the one thing that you see a bunch from him is because he hasn't figured out how to become a lane passer yet. Usually smaller guys have to become lane passers.
Great point.
Drew Brees being the best one in history,
Sure.
figuring out ways to throw through throwing lanes rather than over guys.
Right.
And the Saints did a great job because Drew's drop became a little bit more extended. They figured out a way to help him out because he would pass. His drop was a lot further back than most guys. He would do that on purpose because he had to see. So he has to figure out his own niche when it comes to avoiding the tip passes, and that's why he has leading the league in interceptions because he's getting a lot of balls tipped.
And that's a great point. And the other thing that goes with that is he does have a tendency to drop his arm angle, which also leads to tip balls. He's not an over-the-top thrower. He tends to drop his arm angle, and when he's 6 feet, if he's even 6 feet, I don't know what his exact measurements are.
Just over 6 feet, but he looks smaller.
But he looks small on
Just
tape.
because he's thin and
Right. But he does drop his arm angle, which also leads to tip balls.
When you talk to the measuring tape, does it tell you 6 feet or 5'11" and 3
With the eyes. Read the eyes. Two things. He's also an aggressive thrower.
Without question, I said that he'll
which
turn
will
loose,
lead, but that'll lead to picks. And the other thing is, if you remember, that this is crazy. He was actually a third down thrower for Cam Newton with Carolina. When Cam had the shoulder issue, he would come in. I know he doesn't have the strongest arm, but he would be the guy who would be asked to throw it past 20 yards. And he does not like checking the ball down. That's what someone who graded his tape told me. The guy's wide open to his right for a check down. He won't do it because he wants to make the play. But that does help you with turning it over.
He's got the mentality of a quarterback that has a lot more physical traits than he has,
And he doesn't have them.
which
That's
sometimes
interesting.
gets him in trouble.
Right.
So ceiling is higher though.
Yeah.
You want a guy.
No, yeah.
You want a guy that doesn't want to throw the touchdown.
Right.
You have to, prepare him and beat it into him to throw the check down sometime. But you never want to go the opposite way. A guy that's throwing check down all the time and
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Is he a turn it loose guy?
He is a turn a loose guy. Oh no, he will throw the ball. There's just some throws that you can see when the ball comes out that
may
he
not
just
get
can't
there.
quite
Right.
make.
Right.
But he is.
Right.
You're right. He's an aggressive thrower.
Is because of that, is their offense as schemed up as maybe the Eagles and some other teams that have limitations at what they can do from a passing standpoint? Like, is it as basic as we were talking about with the Eagles?
They do. I would say they do more. Personally, I don't know, Jay, what your feeling is. I think they do more.
Okay, interesting.
One thing I want to ask you, Jason, when you play with Jeff Garcia, because Jeff brought it up, with runaround quarterbacks, as a receiver, does it mentally get after a while? You kind of know he's going to break the pocket and hold on, and do you have to say, okay, I need to come back now? Like, how do you handle that?
Well, so Jeff Garcia, contrary to most people's beliefs, Jeff Garcia didn't run to run. Jeff Garcia was a timing quarterback, and he would actually hit you in the helmet with the ball and curse you out if your head wasn't around in time. Okay. That was Jeff Garcia. I've literally gotten surprised a bunch by his passes. It's just that when the pocket breaks down, that's when he turns into Doug Flutie. So
right.
That was his thing. But yes, you have to mentally prepare yourself that it's not always going to happen on time sometime, and make sure that you stay alive. That was one of my biggest struggles as a player, transitioning from the Eagles to the Panthers, was playing off time. So and with a guy like Taylor Heinicke, if he does pull it down and he wants to extend the play, you gotta be willing to do that with him.
Sure. So when you had a transition, you went straight to what, Cam?
Went to Cam. I went from 2-3 seconds, the ball got to be out, Coach Reed philosophy, and we just play off schedule when Donovan ran until, Cam may not see you. He sees you sometimes, see you, whenever. It may be on first read, maybe on second. We don't know, but just be open. It's hard to play football that way.
Was it easy to catch a Cam Newton bullet?
No.
But you were probably with Donovan, so you were used to it.
Well, Donovan, I can do low because low doesn't hurt me. Right? Low.
Right.
If it's low, I got to catch the ball, right? And it's low.
You don't want to extend like this.
Cam misses high.
Cam was just leaving
Cam's
you
tall,
right
and he
there.
throws tall.
Cam was late and high.
You can't be late and high.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that
ball.
much at all, right?
Oh,
so
he's just leaving those ribs exposed, right?
To make it force you to make business decisions. It's first quarter. I need to play the rest of the game. Fourth quarter, I'll do it.
Was Ricky Pohl the wide receiver coach when you were there?
Great receiver coach.
I love Ricky.
Oh, my God.
Hillsborough, New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
Ricky's the best.
Yeah, great receiver.
The best, yeah.
Let's get back to Heinicke real quick. What happened last week? I did not get an extensive look at that game. You guys did.
I did watch that.
What in the world happened to that?
Well, it started off with the first play, them challenging Trayvon Diggs when he's clearly 12 yards off and looking back inside.
Yeah, well, they went vertical. Yeah.
It's just not the greatest situation in the world, And that was the momentum changer. And after that, the Dallas D-line and blitzing package just got home. They forced the game out of his hands. Made him throw the ball early a bunch, and it was just too much.
Well, it's funny, that first play, they obviously decided during the week, that was probably decided by the coaching staff in their first game plan meeting that we're going to go deep to Terry McLaurin on the first play.
Yes.
And Diggs was playing off coverage. And normally you don't throw deep with off coverage. Because before the snap of the ball, he was, 9-10 yards off?
Yeah, he was off, and he was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, you can't throw that ball.
Now, they did hit one beautiful pass and a great catch by De'Ami Brown, the second round.
Yes.
First half, but
who they've not gotten anywhere near what they thought they were going to get from him.
But the crazy thing was what Dallas did. 35 pass attempts in the first half. So, guys, to me, now we know the Eagles play a certain way. We're not saying they're going to throw the ball a lot. But clearly they believe they could win based on the personnel that they're going up against. So, to me, I do want to see some deep shots today. There should be no excuse. The weather's going to be fine. It cleared up in Washington. It's actually in Landover, Maryland. You and I have been there. You've been there. To me, take some shots today. I think they'll be there. Would you do that?
I mean, I would think with the secondary all beat up that it's an opportunity to do that. I almost flip it and say, well, if Taylor Heinicke got hit a lot and you said Dallas's plan was to come in there and throw some bodies at him, I wonder what Jonathan Gannon is thinking, because clearly given some opportunities the last few weeks to really force the issue a lot, he has chosen not to do that. And I get it. I got ripped on Twitter for pointing out that the Dolphins came after who's the quarterback that they played the Dolphins this past week? It was a young quarterback making his first start. I can't remember the game. I just said, hey, take note. You can go after a guy who's making his first start. That's not really what Jonathan Gannon has done. He has blitzed at times, but he's also
Ian Book.
Ian Book.
Oh, Ian Book, right.
Right, thank you.
Ian Book, right. I was thinking too, because I watched that tape and I'm trying to think, okay, who did they play?
Yeah, it was Ian Book. The most common response I got, and it was all very polite responses on Twitter, thank you so much, was Jake Fromm stinks and Garrett Gilbert, they won the game. What's your deal? And my point was, well, it's a 3-3 game at halftime last week. You were down 10-0 the week before. Yeah, you've been winning the games, but your defense is setting an identity that is different than what you would expect going up against that kind of a quarterback.
To me, he programs, he goes, okay, here's who we're facing. here's where we might face Mike Glennon if he has to come off the bench. We don't need to do anything. We'll eventually get these guys. That's just the way that he coaches. No matter how much I complain about him not being aggressive, you talked about it. They don't give up production. They're really good, by the way, the Eagles are against the run. And you see that Gibson's not playing. You see an aggressive throw that turns the ball over.
Right.
I hate to say this, but why would you be so aggressive?
Well, I mean, to counterpoint, and we talked about whether or not you have great blitzing personnel, whether that's what you do. But we've also talked about the Jets game 2 years ago when Luke Falk was the starter. Nobody like Jim Schwartz did not have great blitzers or love to blitz, and he came after him.
I understand that, Jeff, and you know, as a statement, you can't say you're wrong, okay?
Oh, good, and I win again.
No, but I mean, just as a statement, you know, but clearly Gannon does not do that or hasn't done that this year.
Correct.
And the Eagles are playing good defense.
Right.
So I guess my question to you is, what is the point of your statement that he should be doing something different?
Right.
Just because he should be doing something different?
The point I talk about, and I'll let you go to Chase, is the identity you want to establish going forward and what you can do.
Well, maybe that's not the identity he wants to establish going forward.
It may be not, but then, but do you remember what the identity was when they didn't, when they faced good quarterbacks in the first part of the year, and that's what we've got to figure out.
Right.
And we really haven't had the opportunity. Will they revert to the defense that we saw earlier, which is you get picked apart because you don't force the issue?
I think Jeff is saying this as well, is that in a game like the Giants game where they start a little bit slow, like the Washington football team, you start a little bit slow or what have you. These games you can win with your defense. If you're just aggressive getting to the quarterback and throwing it at a quarterback that cannot hurt you, the game is not 3-3 at halftime.
Right.
We saw them make a defensive touchdown in the second half. That could have happened earlier in the game multiple times. The game could have been out of hand by halftime, and your offense is not even
That's
in
why I
sync
go back
or
to
anything
that Jets
like that.
game 2 years ago. That game was over in 10 minutes. It was
Exactly,
over in
because
10
That's a fair statement.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a fair
There's gonna be
statement.
games
The
like
idea that you can, and maybe it's not as true today because Heinicke has at least proven that he's an NFL quarterback.
Right.
Yeah,
So maybe it is true, maybe it's not. We don't know. But I see your point that you and you amplified it well. Is that you come out, you be aggressive on defense, you create and cause turnovers or field position changes, and you put the game away much earlier because there's no way theoretically the game should have been 3-3 at halftime last week.
I mean, you saw how bad Jake Fromm was. I mean, you had an opportunity to probably put some defensive points on the board if you had forced the issue a little more.
You make a great point, though. We've played lesser talent. And we haven't played the upper echelons of quarterbacks in this league. And
correct.
We make the playoffs, which is a high chance we do. And we have to go against a Buccaneers or go against a
Stafford
team,
or Rodgers
or something like that.
Well, they'll likely get the bye, but
we may be ill prepared for it.
Yeah.
Right. You are right. The Eagles have played much better defense. I want to talk about that, especially against the run. I think it's a combination of getting T.J. Edwards in the lineup about 6 or 7 weeks ago now. And there's no question he's made a difference. Obviously, taking Eric Wilson off the field has also helped them, and he has since been released several weeks ago. They do play more man. They do play more safety in the box. They have made adjustments. So I wonder today, with Washington not having Antonio Gibson, what will Washington do? Because a big part of their turnaround that had started to happen in the middle of the year
was the run game.
But before we even get to the run game, we've got a special game we're about to play here, and that's who's going to drink their drink first. It's a chugging contest.
Ron. What's up, Ron? How are you?
Greg, my money's on you. You're going to chug yours first, right? Thanks, Ron.
I'm thirsty.
Little chat.
Right.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep. We know who Ron's taking
Ron.
today.
Ron, no B-Dog jersey for you today.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
Does that mean you're not feeling so great, or what do you think?
Oh, I think feeling good about this game.
You are? Okay.
Keep running the ball. 65, 70% of the time, I think we can score 30, 35 points.
Even with no Miles Sanders?
I think, well, we still got
Boston.
Boston, Scott.
Gainwell.
I think Gainwell's.
I like Gainwell.
Hopefully not too much Howard, give him a little time to rest.
Yeah.
But I think we keep him under 20 points. I'm thinking 31-18, 35-17, something like
A lot of points. Okay.
All right.
From your lips to God's ears, as they say, right? All right, let's make it happen.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate
Thank
you,
you.
Ron. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Ron.
That's our friend Ron right here at Jack's Bar and Grill at Rivers Casino. Come down, get great drinks like this, and Ron will personally serve you. We, of course, thank him for all his patronage and service to us. So I was saying about the running game, the Washington run game, no Antonio Gibson today, and he really was the kind of guy they were leaning on to get from the tough times to the better times. So Jared Patterson, tell me about Jared Patterson.
Jared Patterson put up ridiculous numbers at the University of Buffalo.
Yeah.
He's actually a very good runner. But he's 5'6", which sometimes can be good, sometimes can be tough for a defense because you can't see him. But he's a tough, physical runner. He doesn't have really juice in terms of breakaway speed, but he actually runs very, very hard inside. And I think they'll make it a combo platter with Patterson and Jonathan Williams. Jonathan Williams is a much bigger back, theoretically more physical, just stylistically. As I said, I really liked him coming out of college. I have no idea what happened to him. But he was a really good runner at Arkansas.
Sure.
And he was an eye back. And I think they have to run the ball. They have to try to run the ball because they won't be able to protect with all those injuries on their offensive line.
Inactives, Eagles, Reed Sinnett. So the Eagles will dress, as always, 2 quarterbacks. Miles Sanders, of course, Tay Gowan, Sean Bradley, who was downgraded out on Saturday. The Raven Clark, Jack Anderson, and just about every week, Marlon Tuipulotu.
Yeah.
All right.
Will Wendell Smallwood play this week for the Redskins?
Wendell
should.
Smallwood, yeah.
Wendell was activated off the practice squad, so he should be up today.
Wow. So he could be the third back.
So it's looking like Jared Patterson, Jonathan Williams, Wendell Smallwood. And I imagine that they will committee it and not try to give one guy so much more
I
than
would
the other.
think.
Ooh, here's Washington's inactives. Curtis Samuel is inactive.
Oh, man.
Garrett Gilbert's inactive. William Jackson, who we knew. Montez Sweat. James Smith-Williams is a backup DN.
But he's been starting, though.
He actually started, this
He's
past
been
game as
starting
the-
much of the season
because of the
when
fifth
Chase
guy.
Young got hurt.
Yeah, he actually started last week against Dallas. So no Curtis Samuel at receiver for Washington.
All right, so we will see. Washington severely undermanned again. And now their running game, which is what they had relied on most, none of those guys really can replace what Antonio Gibson was giving them, which was a good running element and also a guy who can catch the ball in the backfield.
Patterson-
And McKissick also
McKissick's
is out.
done for the season with a concussion. Patterson had a tremendous training camp. They thought, talking to them, that once they got done OTAs, one of the coaches said, I think we're going to keep this guy no matter what. We got to find a way to keep this guy.
Right.
Because he was so different from what they had. He's explosive. He's built a little bit like Boston Scott.
He is.
He's really stocky and
He's
short.
short.
But they got him on some swing passes. I know he hasn't caught the ball at all this season, but he's a guy that is explosive in a short
He's
area.
a physical runner.
Good player, but on your point, they just don't have enough at wide receiver. And remember now, with Logan Thomas out for the season, I know John Bates plays just about all the snaps at tight end. The rookie out of Boise.
He's a good player, by the way.
How is he explosive or just
No.
Dalton
He's not
Schultz
explosive.
type?
He's a very good run blocker, and they use him a lot in the run game as an important part as a blocker. And he's a good short to intermediate player. I mean, he's not plodding, but he's not explosive as a tight end.
But they just don't have any. With Gibson out, they lack playmakers. So that's what I was saying, and we were talking about it. There's nothing wrong with coming out and being aggressive, making Heinicke kind of beat you, rush him, pressure him, because he will put the ball up and he does turn it over.
He does. The guy they haven't gotten that they expected far more out of was De'Ami Brown, the rookie wide receiver from North Carolina, who was a second-round pick. And when you draft a receiver in the second round, I'm not saying you expect 90 catches for 1,500 yards, but they were expecting him to be more. There have been games where I don't know if he's been a healthy scratch.
He had a knee issue for 3 or 4 games.
But he's really not been a factor for them at all.
Sure. There was an interesting comment earlier in the week out of Washington. I guess Ron Rivera sort of said Kyle Allen will be ready, and people interpreted that as Kyle Allen was definitely going to play. Ron almost said he's going to play at some point, and it made people think of last year's Eagles game where they just pulled Jalen Hurts and put Sudfeld in there. Kind of a soft tank might be in the mix here today, but Scott Turner later in the week sort of clarified it and said, no, Taylor's playing and he's going to play. We're just making sure Allen's ready because Heinicke got hit up pretty good against Dallas there. But just the fact that Ron Rivera kind of put that out there, we thought was a little bit interesting. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, their media went crazy with it. Oh, here we go. They're going to play two quarterback system like Carolina was doing. But no, that he cleared it up. And look, they kind of know who Taylor Heinicke is. But they'd like to play a competitive game this week. Now, one other thing here, since they're pretty much out of the playoffs, I know they're playing a lot of younger players due to injury and the COVID issue, but they do need to start evaluating for next year because this staff will be back and Ron Rivera's personnel control.
Right.
I'll be interested to see, you mentioned Brown, De'Ami Brown. I wonder if they'll play him more because I know they're very high on him.
And they did cut last year's fourth rounder a couple days ago, Antonio
Gandy
Golden
got cut yesterday.
Just bounced him,
Yeah,
how
so
about
Brown should play a little bit more today because they're down in
He
numbers.
probably will, yes.
Yeah. I wanted to get back to the Eagles and their defense, T.J. Edwards in particular. When you look at him now over a longer period of time, does he have staying power in your mind?
Well, they think he does. They signed him. But I
1 year,
think that he's very good at what he is. I'm still not sure.
The league is full of that, by the way, right? When you say guys who are
Well,
not first or second round picks, but
Yeah,
do their
and
jobs.
Jay can speak to this as well. I'm still not sure in an ideal world, as you go forward, that he should be a sub-package linebacker. Now, could he be in your nickel if you had a real stud athlete as your other sub-package linebacker? Probably. And the Eagles don't play a lot of dime, but if you were to play 6 DBs, to me, he would not be your linebacker.
Okay.
He's really good in the box. I think he has a really good feel for key and diagnose and navigating traffic and seeing it. He's not a great athlete. So the question becomes, as you go forward, they must see him as someone who's going to play in their nickel going forward, or I don't believe they would have signed him to the deal that they did.
If he's going to play in the nickel going forward, more important for them, as Greg said, to get that super athletic linebacker, and maybe it's Davion Taylor. He'll be in year 3 next year, or maybe up front, more stout, like a big tackle, one of those mammoth tackles you swallow.
Well, they are good. I mean, nickel, you don't think like that. Nickel,
that's
you're
right,
thinking
right,
pass
right.
rushers.
Right.
Yeah. So the problem with T.J. Edwards, and I seen it a few games ago, clear flat route to the sideline. He had to scrape over a defender. Had a guy. It was Antonio Gibson. It was the first time they played. That's who it was. First time he played. Antonio Gibson just cuts back on him. Guy gets 15, 16 yards on that, and it was a routine play for a linebacker, but space is his enemy.
Right.
When it comes to
Great way to say it. Great way to say it.
Athletic, attributes. So, but when it comes to being in the right place in zone, when it comes to going downhill, when it comes to a player not going to beat you, he's not going to beat himself. He's going to be in right position. But when it's better athletes, or he has to make a critical play that it requires a certain level of athleticism, it's probably not going to be made.
And people might point to the interception he made a number of weeks ago against New Orleans, where he dropped back and made what looked like an athletic interception, which was a really poorly thrown ball, but he made a very good play. But I think when all's said and done, he's not really that guy, But
he plays really well.
Yeah,
he's
a good
played
player.
really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I actually, and I'm not saying he's the answer by any stretch, but I actually think when Reed's in their defense has played well too over the last 2-3 weeks, because I think Singleton's played much better over the last 2-3 weeks than he did earlier in the season.
130 combined tackles. He's headed for a team record, by the way.
He leads the team in tackles.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now, earlier in the year, he was getting a lot of tackles, but they were 10 yards down the field.
But he's played much better in recent weeks.
Well,
Yeah.
I had a
would
feeling
explain
the
the
drop-off wasn't going to be so bad from Davion to him.
Yeah.
He played well in spurts last year. I think maybe he just needed
Yeah.
a little more comfort in this defense and to understand his
I mean,
role.
I think he's going to be an interesting evaluation for them as a team as to what to do with him.
Yeah.
So we talked about, the ability for the defensive line and also for the Eagles defense to stop the run. And I think that's the strength of Jonathan Gannon.
Yes.
But the downside of that is the lack of pass rush.
Right.
Right. So when you're really considering you breaking this down, and you got your number one defensive end, which is Josh Sweat. He has 6 sacks. Derek Barnett 2 sacks. Your secondary players, T.J. Edwards and Avonte Maddox, 1.5 sacks for the entire second level of the defense.
Yeah.
You can stop the run, but this league you got to be able to pass rush and get to the quarterback, and we're not doing it at a high level.
You look at Washington's offense today, Jay, also, that there's not anybody that I think the Eagles are going to be really scared of outside of Terry McLaurin, and especially with Curtis Samuel again not being able to play. McLaurin basically made one play against the Eagles in that game, 12 days ago? It was the 46-yard jump ball. He only had a 5-yard catch on his other plays. He has not been, and I imagine this is not on him, more of the function of their offense, but his last 5 games, 4 for 51 versus Seattle, 3 of 22 versus Las Vegas. Nothing against Dallas, he got hurt. 2 for 51 against Philadelphia, and then 3 for 40 last week against the Cowboys. He really has not had the kind of stretch of games that we're accustomed to seeing from him, and I imagine, Craig, that's part of just overall their offense has not been very good this year, or are you seeing something?
Well, I don't think they've had much opposite him, first
Right.
of all.
Right.
And I think that's been a problem all year. I mean, look, they've tried to address that. You know, they cut, as you said, Gandy Golden. He was a 4th-round pick. They drafted De'Ami Brown.
Right.
You know, Curtis Samuel was expected to be a factor. You know, they really, and obviously Logan Thomas got hurt. And Logan Thomas was someone, in speaking to their coaching staff this offseason, they thought Logan Thomas was going to make a big, big leap. And he was very good last year, by the way.
Yeah.
They anticipated him becoming an upper echelon tight end. And obviously he's missed most of the season. So I think there's a domino effect on Terry McLaurin.
Sure. All right. Well, he always seems to have a big play against the Eagles, so we'll have to watch how he plays today. Real quick, some scores coming in. Carl Stevenson says Eagles win 31-17. Michael H. has the Eagles winning 24-21. Nathaniel Singleton, any relation? I don't know. 27-17 Eagles. Hip Hop News Uncensored says 28-14 Birds. Sam Fleming says Antonio Gibson is out. It's going to be 31-16 Eagles. And as I scroll through here,
Some 30s.
I cannot find anybody picking
Washington?
Washington football
What
team
is the last
today.
time on those comments that we got someone picking the other team?
I don't think we've had one yet.
There you go. There's our answer.
Real quick, Carl Stevenson asked, do we see Jalen Reagor's targets increasing after last week? Did he gain any confidence from that game?
He had a drop, he had
He had
a
a
nice
drop,
catch on
yeah.
the crosser, but I would say I want shot plays. Against this defense, I said this earlier, they're down so many players in their secondary. Dallas had them under siege. Dak Prescott, over 300 yards in the first half, 35 attempts. So when you throw it, you got to be more successful.
My guess is Hurts will not have 35 attempts.
No,
in the first half.
but just come out and throw it a little bit.
Hurts is not playing with the same personnel.
I get it.
Like,
Guys can run
you got,
though.
like, that's the thing about Dallas. You have 3 winners.
Yep.
And that's what this league is about. You're trying to, maximize your opportunity to have winners. And we have 2 winners on our team, but they're still not the level of, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. It's just
Gallup's pretty good too.
And Gallup is down the field, hero.
He's their X. They use him as their vertical receiver.
They're,
right.
along with the tight end as well.
Yeah.
A couple of different questions real quick. All of the same variety on Jalen Hurts and his long-term viability for the Eagles. It's really, as I always say, a 2-part question. What do Greg, Jason, and Adam think, and what do the Eagles think, which could be 2 totally different things. So, Jason, if you were running the Eagles and it was your decision, is Jalen Hurts definitely coming back as your starter next year?
Oh, dog.
That's a $64
put that one
million
on.
question.
I wish
I'm glad he asked you that first.
Oh, man.
30 seconds, Jay.
30 seconds. All right, let me see how I can answer this diplomatically as possible. No, let me see. No, based on everything that we have seen, I have to go outside to find someone to at least give them an opportunity so we can have a competition going forward.
So you're surveying the landscape. You're not just committing.
I'm not committing to Jalen Hurts going forward next season based on everything that we've seen this year.
Okay.
And it's not an indictment against Jalen Hurts, and it's not saying that he can't be.
Right.
But based on the time that he's allotted, he's got an opportunity that not many quarterbacks in this league gets in his second year for a second round pick,
right.
to play an entire season, and he hasn't thrown a ball in the best ways. 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, less than 3,000 yards passing so far, and a 61% completion percentage. And that's okay. But it's nothing that's saying that he should be started going forward.
Greg, you're on the spot.
Yeah, there's 2 questions that have to be answered that go together. One is, can the pass game become more expansive and diverse? Because that's what an NFL pass game has to become. And the only way that can happen is if you believe that Jalen Hurts can significantly improve. And I'm not copping out, but I'm not there every day. So I don't know how he does in practice. I don't know how he does in meetings. I don't know how they coach him. I don't know the answers to that. But you have to believe that he can significantly improve, and then you can run much more of an NFL caliber pass game, not a base pass game that is, by NFL standards, somewhat elementary.
Okay.
So that has to happen. Otherwise, you're stuck running an offense that is solely built on the run.
Okay.
Okay, and that's not, in today's NFL, history suggests that that's not going to be enough.
All right.
And over the last of the last 3 years, we've drafted 5 receivers,
Right.
Yeah.
something along those.
And the bottom line is receivers,
all of
as
them
you
are
know, are
playing.
not really a significant part of this offense.
Correct.
And in the NFL, it's very hard to have a championship offense because that's the goal.
All right.
Okay, we're excited now because it looks like they're going to make the playoffs. But the goal is not to be 9-8.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
now I'm really going to put you on the spot then. Based on tape, everything you see on tape, if you're asked to build a team and your choices are Jalen Hurts or Derek Carr, who are you taking?
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr.
Well,
Not
that's-
just
that's
for
an
now
interesting
and for the
one.
future, or just now? Because you're asked to
Well, I
build a
think
team.
Derek.
They're
Well,
playing
Derek
to
Carr's-
45 now. They're playing to 45 now. You remember?
Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr's a better quarterback. You know.
Right.
But he
right
drives
this second.
coaches crazy
Right.
because he does not
No.
always turn
I
it
guess I'm
loose.
asking who you're
Right.
gambling on for
Yeah.
the future.
Right.
But see,
Still Derek Carr?
I mean, Derek Carr to me is a better quarterback.
it
but
kind of,
that's-
as a passer, it's not even comparable.
Yeah.
I agree. I
But
totally agree.
Derek Carr's ceiling is here.
Uh-huh.
Hurts may be here.
Right.
This plays into what Greg was saying. Where do you see Jalen Hurts in 2 or 3 years? Can you
Right, that's
Can
build him up
can
to
he
a
reach
certain
that
point?
ceiling?
Yeah,
Right.
we clearly have not seen enough. We obviously know. We all know.
well.
this.
Yeah.
He's
But
not the guy right
Eagles are
now,
going
but
to have
can he
to
be the guy?
they're going to have to answer this question in the offseason because the question is, no matter what their draft picks are, and they're not apparently not going to be as good as they seemed to be 5 weeks ago or 6
Yes.
weeks ago,
Yes.
but they still have 3 first-round picks.
Right.
It's a big draft for them. So the question is, do they draft a quarterback? When I say early, it doesn't have to be in the first round, but let's say in the second round, do they draft a quarterback? Because if you draft a quarterback in the second round, you're saying that's where Jalen Hurts got drafted. You're saying that guy is truly a guy that has a chance to start
Right.
in the NFL and be a good player. So they have to make a decision as an organization. If they say that Jalen Hurts is without question the guy, then they're not going to draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds
Correct. Well,
because they've got a backup.
you would think.
They've got a backup.
2 years ago they did, and they had an entrenched starter with long-term
Right, well, yeah,
contract. So
you're
they're a
right.
little bit different with the
Because
position.
again,
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Jeff, again, it comes back to the point that we made after he was drafted. There was never a thought that he'd become the Eagles starting quarterback.
Correct.
9 months before they drafted Jalen Hurts, they extended Carson Wentz's contract.
Right.
They saw him only as a backup, a high-end backup. So the question is, moving this forward, do they see him more than that right now?
That's a great
We don't
question.
know that right now.
Don't know
They
that.
don't either, and they're going to have to make a decision. The way it'll go down is like this. Whenever the season is over, Sirianni will sit down with the front office and probably Jeffrey Lurie, because he's generally involved in terms of listening, and he might have to give his opinion. Hopefully he lets the decision makers make the decision. And if he does, they'll have to look at where do they think they could go with this. And the other thing I want to talk about Sirianni is, this is really not the offense that he came in trying to run.
No.
I think we all know that. This is supposed to be timing-based, some sort of a West Coast offense. It's really not. So I do wonder, what does he want to do?
That's a big question.
Because right now he can't do everything he wants to
That
do.
is a big factor. All right, there's one more question I want to get to. First, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. That's PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Herb, a good viewer who's always commenting, has asked both of you guys for your evaluations on Landon Dickerson and Nate Herbig as we kind of get into some trench talk here at the end of the show.
Oh.
Dickerson and Herbig. Let's start with
I get-
Dickerson.
I personally believe, because I see pretty much all teams,
Yeah.
I think that Dickerson and Mailata, the left side of the O-line, as far as run blocking, has been as good a guard-tackle duo as there has been in the NFL over the last 7-8 weeks.
Wow.
They're as run blockers, and you can add Kelsey to that. He's a different player.
Right.
Dickerson and Mailata games are built on strength and power. Kelsey obviously not, as we know. But those two guys, to me, have been so good as run blockers, and that's Dickerson's game.
I've always felt this way, but I'm kind of steeped in it more, that if Jason Kelsey is not going to be my center for whatever reason going forward, I still think I want to keep Dickerson at left guard and have what you're talking about, that monstrous 700 pounds of man on the left side of the line.
Sam Malu go to
And
center.
Sam Malu projected at center coming
Right.
out of the league. You can also draft. I mean, they've got a billion draft picks.
Can draft center.
Nate Herbig has played center. I don't know if you want him to start,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't at this point know that I know Dickerson played there, but with all his injuries, and I'm not sure if that even matters that much, but just keeping him on that side with Jordan Mailata, I feel like is a very good advantage that the Eagles have.
If they're that dominant, why would you change it? I understand, maybe they saw him a different way, but they've been so good together. Mailata and Dickerson, one of the best left sides in the NFL already.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Mailata's first full year as a starter.
Right.
He didn't start every game last year, so this is incredible. And just think about how much better they're going to get. They're both very young. Mailata's only 24 years old.
Yeah.
And Dickerson's a rookie.
Yeah.
They got a lot of good future ahead. That's great potential.
You wonder if they do draft a guy, will they draft a guy with some movement and ability,
Right.
like Kelsey.
Yes.
To kind of give them balance.
Right.
And Jack Driscoll on the other side, who kind of shocked us and played really at a high level. You don't have to worry about the offensive line. That's one area where they don't have to worry about on the team. And by the way, when you say that, look at the Carolina Panthers, who can't compete because they don't have an offensive line.
Right.
When you know that you've got an offensive line for the future, half the job is done.
There you go.
And that's why, just flipping that real quick,
Sure.
I know we're getting close here, and that's why I think what Milton Williams has done on the defensive line is really important too, because if your O-line and D-line are really good, and that's what's shaping up to be what the Eagles are, and Williams has turned out to be a really good pick. He's getting better and better every week and playing more snaps, then you're pretty much set, because Fletcher Cox is not going to be here forever.
That's true. All right, good stuff on that in the offensive line. Thanks to all the questions that people submitted. Hope we gave them at least as best of an attempt at an answer as we could. Right before we get into our normal predictions and stuff, I just wanted to take a minute or two, because our industry lost a titan this past week with the passing of John Madden, the Super Bowl winning head coach, and of course an even greater or as good broadcaster, someone who made people fall in love with football even if they weren't really into it. I know for me, he had already won his Super Bowls when I really got into football. I knew John Madden, the broadcaster, the kind of guy who could just take you from your living room watching the game and feel like you're right there on the field, and sort of a reach out and touch type person. Never had that arrogance with him, nothing pompous, just able to explain the game in such a special way. So I just wanted to just get your guys' comment. Jason, growing up in Chicago, a bigger basketball fan than an NFL fan. What did John Madden mean to you?
It was like he's one of those staple guys, especially for the NFL. For me, it was Keith Jackson for college, and it was like John Madden for the NFL.
Whoa, Nelly.
And so it shaped kind of your childhood, kind of shaped when you were watching NFL, you thought of John Madden, and then we were avid John Madden football video game players, right? That's what we did. So you would always hear his voice, so you always remember his name. So it's sad. It was a sad time. There's a lot of great people that we lost this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm the old guy here, so I remember him as a coach.
Yeah.
So I remember him with the Raiders being in the Super Bowl and winning. Just from a personal perspective, I mean, I don't think that there'd be an NFL matchup show, which I created in 1984, if it wasn't for John Madden. Because I think John Madden actually started bringing the X's and O's to the fan in a way that was totally palatable. Where fans could understand it and enjoyed it.
Right.
Because there was a sense back then that no one cared about the game that way, or that it was too complicated.
Right.
And I think John Madden took the approach which I've always believed, but he started it way ahead of me, way better than I, that the game's not complicated, it's just detailed, and if you have fun explaining the detail, make it fun, that people get it.
Yes.
And that's what he did.
Yeah.
And, I think that set the stage for so much that's followed.
Right. And if I can say what you and Sal Powell and Matt Bowen, right?
Matt Bowen,
on the ESPN NFL matchup show really does follow in those footsteps. You guys do an amazing job.
And I started that in 1984,
84.
believe it or not.
Wow. You just dated yourself, my friend.
Well,
you're looking good.
It is what it is.
Good.
Never seen anyone at 70 look so good.
Did you ever have a chance, Adam, to meet John Madden?
Okay, Eagles practice, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer. He was at a training camp practice, and what stands out is I forgot how big the guy was.
He's a big
Is he
fella.
6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah, he's a big man.
Big guy, gregarious, just so kind and
imposing
body.
Yeah.
I would have to say on my Mount Rushmore, it's Vince Lombardi, George Papa Bear Hallison, and John Madden. That would be, if you look at football, me growing up.
Just overall impact?
Just on the game, yes.
Yeah.
Lombardi, obviously Belichick, what he's done will be up there. And then the thing is, living here in Philly, for those of us in our 40s to 50s or 70s.
He couldn't resist
I
that,
couldn't, because it just works. But no,
Yeah.
but that 4 o'clock game on Sundays here, for some reason, we would get Ken Stabler and in the 70s and the Raider games at 4 o'clock.
Right.
If the Eagles are playing at 1, we get the Raiders a lot with Kurt Gowdy.
Kurt Gowdy.
Yeah, we got him a lot. And, man, it was Madden. And then I remember his last game against the Vikings and Fran Tarkenton in. Old Man Willie returning the touchdown as the late, great Bill King, the play-by-play announcer for
Old
the
Man
Raiders.
Willie.
Yep.
One of the great NFL films shots.
Look at Old Man Willie.
Old Man.
Yep.
No, I got to know Pat Summerall pretty well, but
What a tandem.
Amazingly enough, I never met John Madden in my career, but I got to know Pat Summerall well.
So I got to meet John Madden once at Eagles training camp in Lehigh, and he would always do the annual summer camp tour.
Yeah.
And of course, the Madden Cruiser was
forgot
parked
about that.
right
Yeah.
outside the field, and at that point, they had moved the media from the dorms to they built the trailer for the media. And I came out one day, and I was walking around the Madden Cruiser like this, just on the outside of it, and he saw me looking at it. I didn't realize it. And he goes, "Hey, you want to go inside?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Come on, I'll show you around."
That's awesome.
So he takes me into the Madden Cruiser. And, that's a legendary thing. The Madden,
Right.
it's like the size of 3 buses. It's
Well, he would. I mean, I was a
Unbelievable.
home really for him.
Because he would not fly.
Yeah.
Right, he would not fly. That was his home,
Yeah.
and he gave me an opportunity and a
That's so
great
cool.
tour.
Do you have
of
any
it. So,
pictures?
I did take pictures, but that's like 7 phones ago, so
Oh,
it's stored
okay.
on a
All
cloud
right.
somewhere, and
All
I don't
right.
have them with me.
All right.
But it was a wonderful experience, and I really appreciate John Madden for doing that. So rest in peace to John Madden from everybody here at Inside the Birds pregame live. All right, it is time for our player of the game and our score predictions. Of course, brought to you by BetQL. If you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you got to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They got a best bet computer model that scans over 350,000 unique bets a year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game, every sport, the reason why you should make the bets from spreads to over-unders, player prop bets. And of course, if you don't want to use the model, they got all the necessary tools for your own research, from sharp data to line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboard to track your success. So go to the App Store or the Google Play Store now to download BetQL. There's also a website called try.betql.co/ITB. You get started, just use the discount code ITB to get 25% off at BetQL. All right, let's start with Jason. Who's the player of the game?
Play the game.
Who's going to be?
Devontae Smith with all the injuries in the secondary, them seeing what the Cowboys have done in throwing the ball. Jalen Hurts throwing it out, starting off throwing it a little bit. Devontae Smith.
All right, so Eagles going to throw the ball a little bit today. Maybe a little bit.
When they do, they should be successful.
Or just to Devontae Smith.
It's only 2 people they throw it to, so it's got to
Oh,
so it's like
man.
50-50.
So you have a wheel that says got it,
right,
and
right,
spin it, and you spin it, and
Spin
wherever
it, yeah.
it lands on Quinton, you just spin it again. No, go ahead.
I picked Boston Scott because I
think it's
think
a good
they're going to
one.
run the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that Scott's going to end up, he's not going to have 25 carries, but I think he could have 14 or 15. And he always seems to break one here and there. When I say break one, maybe not for 60 yards, but, I could see Scott having a 14 for 84 kind of day, and I think he'll be a big factor in the game.
All right, Boston Scott, who do you say?
I've got Jalen Hurts. Now that the ankle seemingly is better, they'll get that run game. I love that quarterback power, man. Here you go. We're going to see it.
You watched the matchup show today?
I did, and I
There
love
you go.
I love when you showed just the synchronized movement of the Eagles' offensive line. I just was mesmerized by this is unbelievable. Just how great they are, and I love that quarterback power. So many teams use that.
QB power.
QB
Good stuff.
power, yeah.
QB power, man.
All right, so Jalen Hurts. I see where all this is going, by the way, just based on player of the game. You guys know I'm a big law of averages guy, right?
Oh, no.
And
No,
I'm
you're
a
not.
big turn
No,
of
you're
momentum guy. And I can't help but look at a guy like Terry McLaurin and think, it's about time for Terry to have
Well,
a
if they
big
win
game.
it, if they win, they
Well,
better have a
you
huge
know
game.
where I'm going with this. I think Terry McLaurin has been a thorn in the Eagles' side, and
You're
he's
not.
going to be one today.
You are
I
not.
think Terry McLaurin is the player of the
my
game,
gosh.
which will bring us to our score predictions. And before you mock me, I'm putting everything on line. I'm beating everybody. I'm up by a game in the standings.
But we will still mock you.
Well, that's true. You will
He
still
wears a
mock.
mock turtleneck.
All right, before we tell you our picks, remember, Sundays are made for football at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Every Sunday from now until the end of the season, you can enjoy $7 food specials right here in Jack's Bar and Grill. half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials, and more. And when the Birds score, you score if you're actively planning with your Rush Rewards card in their Bird's Nest pit. It's right in front of the sportsbook. Remember, you could be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, by the way, BetQL today says they are predicting, now, Bet Rivers, here Rivers Casino says the Eagles are 5.5-point favorites.
Currently, okay.
Started at 4. Well, it started at 3. It's jumped around, but the latest is 5.5-point favorites with an over-under of 45. And, of course, if you go to BetQL and look at all their trends, they're saying it's going to be a big day for Jalen Hurts. 270 passing yards, 40 rushing yards. And Devontae Smith, 7 catches, 120, and a touchdown is what they predict.
That's the only good thing about BetQL? No.
Jason and BetQL agree. So, Jason, who's going to win the game?
I got the Birds. I got the Birds winning 27-17.
Correct.
27-17.
Yeah.
All right, it's a big 10-point win for Birds.
I think they're covered today.
All right. Greg?
I know I picked the Birds, but because I picked it on Friday and I'm so old, according to Kaplan, I can't remember what score I picked.
24-20, you have the Eagles winning.
24-20.
Because I think Heinicke is going to play better this week, and I think they are going to score a little bit. So I thought it would be a closer game.
All right, so Birds win, don't cover. Basically, the 5.5.
I have no idea.
Well,
And I don't know one thing about betting lines.
Yeah.
Well, we like betting lines here at Bet Rivers, and we say he doesn't cover.
I
all
look
right?
at them to see how Vegas thinks. I find it interesting.
Yeah, what do you think happens today?
I've got an Eagles 23-17. First, I had a 23-20, but when I saw Gibson was out, I don't know how they're going to score. 23-17 Eagles.
All right, so far everybody has picked the Eagles. You're saying they cover. Everyone's picked the under on the 45, right? 27-17 is what? 50? No, you're over.
44.
Guys love averages. Win streak comes to an end today. I think Washington wins a very ugly, sloppy game, 23-15.
Wow.
That's what I'm going with. All right.
Wow.
End of the show.
You better hope it's not like the Giants
Credit.
game, the first one, of
We
course.
will see.
Well, I guess if that happens today, Jeff, just before you sign off, and
sure.
that means they might be looking for a new quarterback next year, huh?
Yes, based on the reaction, you can sure be. We'll get a lot of.
We're going to hold you to that.
All right, before you put your money down at the Bet Rivers app or just come here, Bet Rivers Casino Philadelphia, you can also get the statistical trends and data at BetQL. Big thanks to Rivers, Sky Motorcars, BetQL, the teams at Rebel Hill and Public Square. Make sure you get the Inside the Birds podcast. The next one will drop tomorrow at 6 a.m. Q&A will drop Thursday at 6 a.m. and look for our coverage of the game immediately after the game on InsideTheBirds.com. Enjoy the game. Happy New Year. Have a great week, everyone.